Malcontent News is a team of journalists, activists, and researchers with three key missions. A commitment to show an unfiltered view of the before, during, and after of key events, live, as it happens. To defend the First Amendment using our rights of a free press. And to amplify the voices of underrepresented individuals including Black, Indigenous, persons of color, and the LGBTQIA+ community. Our team is committed to seeking equality for all and holding those in power accountable. The easiest way to support Malcontent News is to bookmark our website at malcontentnews.com, like and follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter, TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, and in the Google News app. To provide financial support, you can become a patron, make a one-time donation through Venmo, or link your Twitch account to your Amazon Prime account and use your free subscription to subscribe to Malcontent News. Thank you for supporting independent journalism and for being a malcontent. Good evening, malcontents. It's been a long time. Too long. I am David. I am the Malcontent. Welcome to Late Night with the Malcontent. There is a lot to cover. There's a lot to cover on the international stage, the national stage, and the local stage. Hello to all of our channels. Let's go ahead and cover where we're at. We are on TikTok. Hello, TikTok. Who are you people? There's 106,000 of you. Wow. Wow. I want to also give our shout out here to our folks on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. If you're on Facebook, go ahead and mess with Zuckerberg's AI. Go ahead and spam those hearts, spam those hearts. Let people know that there's maybe good content that's going on our channel on Facebook. Facebook, now 75% Russian bot free. Haha, funny joke. Can say the same thing about Twitter. If you are watching us on Twitch, you can go ahead and use our remotes. Feel free to use that. Litter mods and ads know you. KD, we've missed you too. Wendy in Portland, how are you? Rashi's in the house. Rashi is our video editor, by the way. Rashi, we got lots of work for you to do. Big things happening, as you know. Oh my God, Kenyak, how are you? Mods are in the house. Who we got over here? 740. Who are you people? All right. Let's go into it. Obviously, what's the hot topic? The hot topic is Russia, Ukraine, and everything that's going on. And the news is moving a million miles an hour. And I have seen some of your questions that have been coming through on the side. So what I'm going to be doing is we are going to be, I know, Rashi, I'm excited too. I am going to be answering your questions, and I will be explaining some things, and I'll be explaining some things about like our process and what we do, because that was one of the first questions when we popped on this. You know, how do we gather our information? What's our validation process? What's our cred? What do we do? Old school malcontents already know about this, but people on TikTok probably don't. When you're like, what is he pointing? By the way, if you're just coming in, I'll explain this again. When I'm looking at you here, I'm talking to TikTok. If I'm over here, if you're like, why is he not looking at that screen? Same thing. If you're over there, he's like, why is he looking there? We're on 4 other channels. That camera's over there. If you want to watch us on the big screen, you can go to malcontentnews.tv. If you want to watch us on TikTok, enjoy the amazingness that's going on over there. Y'all are amazing. You can find us on Malcontent News on TikTok. Echo 40. Wow, I love this. The shirt is cool. The shirt was sent to me by a malcontent. Thank you. This has been a crazy ride. And so is this mug. Of course, I talk to myself sometimes. This is where all my good ideas come from, by the way. There you go. This was also set. It's not. I do have the that camera on fixed focus, but this also came from a Malcontent. By the way, our sound equipment, folks that are watching us on those other 4 channels, also came from a Malcontent from our wish list. Just wow, absolutely love it. Okay, let's talk about what's going on. It's not great. Well, depends where all of this is in your mind. Uh, let's talk about Kyiv, first of all. If we look at the northwest side of Kyiv, along the Irpin River, Russian forces are stopped, to quote the movie, ironically, and I stress ironically, Red Dawn. Man, if you watch I don't know, am I the only one? Like, I can't even get through Red Dawn now. Red Dawn to me is like just pure schmaltz propaganda, borderline a comedy of a movie. I seriously, I can't get through it now. I mean, I get it. It's their childhood. Gen X, I get it. This is our childhood. This was our childhood fantasy. And now I'm just like, oh, this movie hurts my brain. But to quote the movie Red Dawn, Russian forces have been stopped butt cold along the Irpin River. There's a couple of reasons for that. Reason number one is the Ukrainian military is doing an amazing job. I was talking to Dr. Mrs. Malcontent. That's what I call my wife on air because she's a little shy. But I was talking to Dr. Mrs. Malk. By the way, if you're a Venture Brothers fan, then you get where that joke comes from. I'm a big Adult Swim fan. But I was talking to Dr. Mrs. Malcontent about this. History books will write, and military historians will document what is going on in Bucha and Irpin. It really is historic, the defense that's going on there. The Ukrainian Air Force, Russian Ministry of Defense earlier this week was like, thank you for the goggles, I love those. We have air superiority. And like literally the rest of the world went, what are you talking about, bros? And the Ukrainian Air Force still is flying, still is active. Now, the Ukrainian Air Force does not have air superiority, but neither does Russia, neither country does. And it depends on the region you're in. There are regions where Russian Air Force clearly has air dominance. There are areas in Ukraine still where the Ukrainian Air Force clearly has air dominance. The airspace is contested. And we know that because we're not seeing a lot of cargo planes flying from either nation. If there was air superiority, you would just be seeing a stream of Antonov A-154s and other Russian cargo planes just flying into the country. And we're not seeing that because they wouldn't get to they're not going to land. I mean, they'll land with a thud, but they're not going to get to their destination. And that's why we're not seeing that. And the Pentagon announced yesterday something that I'm going to move to opinion, that we have suspected for days, that real-time military information has been fed to the Ukrainian military. That really got stepped up, and the Ukrainian military is really starting to, I think the right word would be harass this convoy that isn't moving. And it's not moving for a bunch of reasons, and we're going to get into that in a minute too. So we got that going on up on the northwest side. The other thing that's been going on is Ukrainian military has been blowing up the bridges. Last weekend, Russian engineers tried to come in, tried to set up a pontoon bridge across the Irpin River. This was after we had this was wild on Sunday. Sunday, we did a TikTok, so almost a week ago, and we showed some still pictures of Russia. It might have been video clip. There's so many now, it's just a blur, of Russian forces that were assembling in Bucha, where an armored column was getting set up. And OST Technical, which is a source that we really trust and has been a great source for us, and a great source for validating information, was, hey, they're getting ready to do a big push on Irpin. And you may have seen videos in Bucha of just a completely obliterated neighborhood and a completely obliterated, like as far as the eye could see, obliterated Russian army. That was that column. Like as soon as we saw the pictures, we're like, that's the pictures or the videos that we shared on Sunday, like we noticed like the wall and stuff. We're like, those are the exact same tanks. They never got that pontoon bridge set up. It's just been a disaster. Um, Over on the eastern side of Kyiv, so on the eastern side of the Dnieper River, what's been going on over there? A couple of things. You have Kharkiv, which is under siege, and there are potential war crimes that are going there. And I know some of you might be going, what do you mean potential? I'm putting on my journalist hat. And this is one of the reasons sometimes you'll hear journalists say alleged, accused. And it's painful sometimes for us. We get roasted for it. And I know people roast journalists for this too. There'll be an incident that happens. Great example. This incident at the down in Oregon. Oh my God, I'm just blanking out. This protest where a person came in, shot 5 people, and got shot, and then he's named. Right, the suspect is named, and here I am calling him a suspect. And I'm like, people, there's a GoPro video. How can you say that? And it's like, because if he's not convicted, then we could get sued. So that's why we have to use those words. There are allegations and strong evidence, and that's the strongest way that I'm willing to put it, of war crimes that are going on in Kharkiv, particularly the use of cluster bombs in civilian areas, which NATO has acknowledged that, yes, this is going on. I'm not sorry, United Nations, apologies, walk that back. Not NATO. United Nations acknowledged today, Seattle time, that's going on. They acknowledged accusations that butterfly-type anti-personnel mines are being airdropped by Russian forces. Now, acknowledge means they go, yes, we've heard the accusations, and we've seen pictures. But again, fog of war, you just can't go, yes, by golly, they've done it. Because look how hard it is to validate. Right? People are we struggle. Everyone's struggling to validate the information they're getting. So you just, if you find yourself getting worked up emotionally, red flag. It's an immediate red flag at that point. Normandy Park, yes, Spacey Gracie, thank you. The pew pew incident. I keep forgetting on TikTok. I can't say certain words. People on other channels, you have to be a little Orwellian. Unfortunately, on TikTok, you get in trouble if you say certain words. Yes, the pew pew incident at Normandy Park. Spacey Gracie, thank you so much for that. True. War crimes at the end. Yes, we're going to talk about this because we are going to talk about the growing atrocities that are going on. And I'm going to talk a little bit, some opinions that I have on some things that I'm concerned about, on some things that people have brought to light to me. Back to what's going on in the eastern side. We have Kharkiv is just under constant bombardment. Russia's doing the same thing that they've done in every other country that they've invaded in the name of peace, which is to just bomb everything flat, which is really what's going on in Kharkiv. They are bypassing Sumy. So they have broken through from Kharkiv. Interestingly, they haven't secured Kharkiv, which is why they're having huge problems along the Irpin River. They're connected, no pun intended. Literally no pun intended. So they're moving now to the east, and they're making a big breakthrough in the last 12 to 18 hours. Russian forces have advanced a lot. However, that's just advance. They're not really holding anything, and their supply lines are, quite frankly, a joke. This is another thing I want to talk about tonight, is just how mind-blowingly bad the Russian military machine is, how oversold their capacity, their capabilities have. It is stunning, some of the things that are being revealed, some of the things that are being discovered at this point. The concern is what they're trying to do is envelop Kyiv and possibly come in from the east. So that's what's going on down there. Mariupol, what's happening down there, very similar to what's going on in Kharkiv. I'm doing this off of memory. Going on in Kharkiv, which is constant bombardment. City is under siege, but still under control by Ukrainian forces. So why is um, Kharkiv such a huge issue for the Russians? And why is bypassing it, even though they're making this breakthrough, probably not a good military move? Opinion, but an educated opinion on what people have been telling me. First of all, and we had talked about this in a TikTok we did earlier today, they're harassing supply lines. And we're not the only people who kind of looked at this and like they seem to be really going after Russian supply lines. And it makes sense because Russia has huge logistical and supply issues. This is not the main reason why they're blocked on the northwest side. They're blocked on the northwest side because the Ukrainian forces are just putting up an incredible resistance there. Historic. In other parts of the country, they're in this situation where, like Kherson, this is a great example. They may control that city. There's a lot of evidence that that control is still to a degree contested. There is probably a degree of there's probably a degree of not a citizen army anymore there, citizen army, but probably more of a guerrilla war or insurgency, poking and probing on the side there. But they're having a real hard time getting supplies in there because Ukrainian special forces, and I'm not giving you information that you couldn't find if you wanted open source intelligence and dug around and validated it. Ukrainian special forces, which you probably haven't heard a lot about in all this, they're going after the supply lines. Russian military is running out of fuel, they're running out of food, and their tires are bad. We've seen several articles, we've seen this repeated, and this kind of gets into the fact-checking piece of what goes on it. Their tires are bad. And there's a couple of problems. One, vehicles that were stored in what you would call ready reserve. And the United States, for instance, we have ready reserve vehicles, so we started activating them in Germany over the weekend. The 405th is setting up a combat brigade of armor. Now, anybody who's long-term stored a car in their life or has ever seen a car that's been stored, if you don't start that engine at least once a year and drive it around, even if it's just drive it a few circles, I actually have a car that I need to drive in a few circles. Bad things start happening. Seals dry out. Tires start to crack. And this is what's happening to some of the Russian vehicles. Their seals are leaking. The grease and oil's leaking out of them. Or the tires are dry rotted and they're driving down the road. And just like if you were driving an old dry rotted tire on a car, boom, they're literally just having a blowout. And that's it, the end. Because the spare tire, oh yeah, that's dry rotted too. The other problem that they're having is the Russian military bought a bunch of Chinese tires. And that makes sense, right? I mean, they're buddies. Something that Russia is finding out is they're not as good a buddy as they thought, but they're buddies. The Chinese tires are terrible. And they're terrible in part because of the design. It's mud season in Ukraine. Ukraine was the breadbasket of the Soviet Union. This would be like you're in Kansas, to give you, an analogy for a lot of areas of Ukraine. It's farmland, it's wheat, and it's all mud in a lot of areas now. And so these Russian vehicles they don't want to be on the roads. Go back to your TB2s and the Ukrainian Su-24s and Su-25s, backed by AWACS support from the US military, going, yes, they're here and the Russian planes are here. So if you fly in there in the next 10 minutes, you can take this convoy out and those Russian planes won't be able to get to you in time. That's probably the kind of intelligence that they're getting. And this is probably why the Ukrainian Air Force is still operating and why they don't have Russians' air superiority. So they don't want to drive on the roads because bad things happen when you drive on the roads. So they drive it in the fields and they're getting stuck in the mud. And then they're just abandoning the vehicles. And the reports of desertions, and yeah, these are true. They're probably, you know, you got to be careful because this gets hyped up. You know, they're punching holes in their gas tanks. They're deserting. Yes, but we're not talking thousands and thousands of troops because if there were thousands and thousands of troops deserting, the Ukrainian military would have another problem and we would be hearing about it, which is we have thousands of prisoners of war and no resources to hold them, feed them, care for them, put a roof over their heads per the Geneva Convention. Help. And we're not hearing that. So, yes, there's deserters. There's videos that are very valid. We are not talking huge numbers of people that are deserting. There are reports of Russian troops. There are a lot of reports of Russian troops looting grocery stores, looting convenience stores, taking food. There has been accusations as we start getting into kind of war crime things of Russian soldiers breaking into people's homes at gunpoint and taking their food. They have been looting homes and they have been bartering. And there are some reports they have been flat out begging for food because they have no food. And this is why they're having a really hard time. So this gets back to this push from the north that's going around through Sumy. They have no supply lines. And there's some rumors, and I'm not going to broadcast them because they're rumors. They're interesting rumors on that. I know people are like, no, tell us the juicy rumor. It's not confirmed. And if it's true, people shouldn't be talking about it. Just leave it at that. Okay, I know I said I was going to talk about how we validate, but I want to get through the big picture, what's going on. We noticed a couple of things today after the incident at the nuclear TikTok. I'm getting roasted on TikTok for saying nuclear wrong. Oh my goodness. Just the Kiwi girl from New Zealand is in the house. Oh my God. Hi. New Zealand's in the house. The tenacity of the Ukrainian people is mind-blowing. Absolutely. And again, we're going to talk about what the heck is going on and how bad things are for the Russian military right now, because it's really bad. It's really bad. Okay. Some things that are going on that we noticed after the incident at the power plant yesterday. B-52s from out of Minot Air Force Base were on station, that means circling, over Hungary today. A couple of them. B-52s are bombers. They're big bombers. They are strategic bombers. They are capable of carrying nuclear weapons. When the United States Air Force sends B-52s, puts them up in the air, and circles them, for decades, this is a message. This is this is kind of it's a message, right? The tail's still wagging a little bit. This isn't like I'm going to chew your hand off. Like you ever see the dog, right? The dog's kind of like a little unsure. The dog's like, but the tail's kind of going still, right? It's kind of like, I'm not sure about you, bro. And if you make the wrong move, I'm going to wreck your day. However, if you do things right, you can definitely come over here and scratch me behind the ears. You're just going to figure out what I want. That's what I mean by. It's certainly, I don't want to use the word escalation. It's not the right word. It's one thing when you can write a script for a TikTok. It's a totally different thing when you're live and you're just vamping. It's certainly interesting. I guess that is the good way to put it. We saw an EB-4 up tonight over Texas. If you're like, well, what's an EB-4? EB-4 is the so-called doomsday planes. It's not unusual for an EB-4 to be up. We are no longer in a state, we have not been in a state of having Looking Glass up. That's the Cold War term. Looking Glass was a program where we essentially would have doomsday plane up 24/7. We are no longer on that footing. We haven't been on that footing and this has nothing to do with Biden, Trump, Obama. This has been years and years. Actually, I believe we went off of the 24 ready alert going all the way back to Clinton and into Bush. They started it back up after 9/11. I think they ended it after, don't hold me to these years because I don't have like notes, like 2005, 2006. I think we went back to, okay, that's enough of that. So it's not unusual to see an EB4 up in the air, but it's a little, there's a couple other things going on tonight that have us going, what's going on? The other thing, by the way, if anybody here is military analyst, yeah, I'm not like military. I'm not asking for the secret sauce here because maybe we don't want to know. But if somebody's got insight, put them in the comments or tips@malcontentnews.com. Let us know what you're, and then what you can also just do is, if you're like, look, I can't really tell you, but if you go here, hint, that's actually part of how we trust and verify. People give us leads. Anyway, there's a Poseidon P-8. That's an anti-submarine plane flying along the Gulf Coast. Not unusual. One EB-6 up. That's a TACMO plane. Take control and move out. TACMO. One up. Not unusual. TACMO plane can take over for an EB-6. Can take over for the EB-4, the Doomsday plane. We have 4 Doomsday planes. I think we have like 20 EB-6s. But this is the one that had us go. It's funny because one of our researchers, Boomer, hi Boomer, one of our researchers, Boomer, and I posted the same image from 2 different sources at the same time, literally going, look at this. And I was like, yeah, that's interesting. This is not giving me warm fuzzies. There is a Q4 Global Hawk, which is a drone, spy drone. And we've seen these up all over the Black Sea. Before the invasion, we saw them flying along the Russian border, along the Belarusian border. We've seen them flying along the Moldovan border, sometimes in Moldova and Poland, but facing Belarus and Ukraine. If you go on these aircraft tracking websites like Flight Radar or AB Exchange, there's a Global Hawk that's watching Kaliningrad and Belarus like a hawk. No, and it's just what popped in my head. And that's a little interesting because it's like, why are we watching Kaliningrad so hard? What's going on there? And, why is there an EB-4 in the air? Why is there a P-8 really looking at the Gulf Coast, like hugging the Gulf Coast, watching the Gulf Coast closely? Don't imply anything into that. I'm just telling you the stuff that we're seeing. There's literally no subtext. But we have not seen a Global Hawk watching Kaliningrad as close as it is. Now, some of you are probably going, the hell is Kaliningrad? Kaliningrad is this weird little piece of real estate. So at the end of World War II, and the Allies are sitting down, and Stalin was always had this intention of taking Eastern Europe anyway. Stalin wasn't a nice guy. Stalin and crazy Adolf, I think it's as far as I can go on TikTok. Those two could throw down on who was worse. And I say that as somebody who was Jewish. And Stalin was terrible with the Jews too, by the way. They truly could throw down on who was worse. Stalin always intended to keep Eastern Europe. And there were already concerns among some U.S. generals. Patton very famously. Churchill was also very concerned about Russian aggression. And Truman wasn't exactly a fan, but probably not as concerned as Churchill and some of the generals that were under him. So they were like, okay, Poland, fine. You get Poland. You get this part of Germany because you fought hard to get it. We're going to divide Berlin into these four sectors, 4 protectorates. Russia, you'll get a chunk of that. And then you'll get the Baltics because, okay, fine, you're arguing historically they were yours and you had them before the war anyway, so fine. And there's this chunk of land between the Baltics and Poland. And that chunk of land, if I remember, was actually weirdly attached to Germany. And oh, one other thing on Crazy Adolf and Stalin, like, let's remember our history here. When Poland was invaded, Russia was an ally to Germany. Don't ever forget that. They didn't teach me that in school when I was taught World War II, American high school. We didn't talk about that part. I don't know why, actually, because we were fed a lot of propaganda about Russia being a Cold War kid, and I think that would have just been more icing on the cake. But it was always the Germans did it. And then I didn't learn until much later in life that, wait a minute, I thought Russia, what? They helped? They took like over a third of the country. They divvied it up. They got this piece, Kaliningrad. And so that was the thing, is like, well, you took Kaliningrad anyway, so you get it. And what's happened? The Iron Curtain falls. Poland gets its independence. The Baltics get their independence. And there's still this piece of real estate, Kaliningrad. And Kaliningrad's got problems because Kaliningrad is Russia. And they are cut off. There's no airplanes. A lot of the internet services are getting cut off. They are financially cut off. And Russia has no interest in giving up Kaliningrad because it is one. Now, I get it, climate change. Don't get all freaky because I said the words climate change. Because the oceans are warming. Pre-climate change, back when this was a big issue, this was the only Baltic port that did not freeze, at least for some part of the winter. And this is why Russia was like, we want Kaliningrad, because they wanted the port. Because if they didn't, then some of the ports that they have would freeze in the wintertime, which if you're trying to have a navy, that's kind of a problem, right? It's kind of a problem. Because the only thing that you got is submarines that can go under the ice, but then the submarines, if they into port, they can't go deep enough to go under the ice because the water's too shallow and it's all frozen. And how do you get the crews in and out? So this is why. This is why in Syria, Russia will always have its thumb on Syria as long as they have a naval base in Tartus, because that is their only warm water naval base they have, period. And it is the only naval base on the Atlantic side of things that don't have to pass right hugging the coast on NATO countries, right? Because things are pretty narrow through there, right? So they could sail out of Tartus, sail south, hug the coast of Africa, and then the only point where they have the choke point is Gibraltar. If they're out of the Baltics, they don't have that. And that's all they got on the eastern side. There's a longer term strategic issue that the United States is really going to have to work on, that the United States is totally ignoring from a military standpoint, which is because of climate change, the Arctic Ocean is melting more and more every year. And in my lifetime, unless our governments do something really stupid in the next few months, in my lifetime, that's going to be open water year round. It will freeze in the wintertime, but it's going to be open water. And this is an area where Russia has been investing in. It's very clear they haven't been investing in a lot of other stuff that they said they were going to be investing in. Let's talk about butterfly mines. I mentioned butterfly mines, and I didn't get into what those are. So butterfly mines are dropped from an aircraft, and they essentially have like a wing on them. They come in different colors. Like I had somebody said, have a nickname, they're called a green parrot, but they do come in different colors. And that winglet causes it to spin, so they descend slowly and they spread out. They're anti-personnel mines. And they're really insidious anti-personnel mines. They are not made to kill, they are made to maim. I'm sorry, I said the K word on TikTok. I'm supposed to say yeet or unalive, apparently. They're not meant, they're meant to maim. And the reason they're meant to maim is a couple of reasons. One, and you have somebody injured, then other people are going to go in to help their injured comrade, and maybe you injure a couple other people from other anti-personnel that are sitting around. The second thing is you've taken not one person out, you've taken three, because you have two people that need to carry this person out, medically care for them, and get them out. And that person is probably not going to be doing any more military duty ever again. Because they are colored, and sometimes brightly colored, they are super attracted to children, and children perceive them as they have found a toy with catastrophic results. And there are allegations that these are being dropped by Russian aircraft. And I stress allegations. I and our team have not seen anything where we can go, yeah, this is really happening. Cluster munitions, we were like, oh no, that's cluster munitions. And I saw some of the absolute just mind-blowingly just ridiculous comments of people like, that's a controlled demolition. Because you don't see bombs coming down. They're cluster bombs. They're literally like this big. That's why you don't see them coming down. They're like the size of my fist, or like the size of a little bigger than a golf ball. That's why you're not seeing them. Notice if it was a controlled demolition, how come the buildings aren't falling down? Yeah, it's people. Like what? Let's talk about, so anyway, that's what butterfly mines are. We'll see what's happening there. The next thing I want to talk about, there have been some very serious reports and some videos of, quite frankly, behavior that the Russian military has used in other places in the world. There is an audio recording and a claim from a Kherson police officer who has stayed in the city to fight with Russian, that he has got a phone call, and there's that his entire family was killed by Russian forces at a checkpoint. His wife, his parents, and his 2 kids, including one that's 2 months old. I feel opinion. There's a lot of validity to this story, and I'm going to tell you why. And it isn't the audio recording. On that same day, because this happened yesterday, ITV, which is a news organization, and ITV, if you ever watch, if you remember Storm Chasers, and Dominator, the Dominator, right? If there was tornadoes expected, and the Dominator shows up in your town, it's like, well, now I know that stuff's going to be going down, right? Yeah, if there's conflict going on, if there's a disaster happening, and ITV is in your hood, that's not a good sign. It's not good. ITV crew was recording their experience through it. Now, I don't know if they went through the same checkpoint. Russian tank pointed its main battle gun right at their car. It's on camera. The Russian troops all took up positions, got on knees, pointed. This is while one of the people was like, hey, we're pressed. We're just leaving, and is talking to them, and they're filming this as it's going on from the car. So the person that's talking to them, that's among ITV News, is 7,500 feet away, and they're just getting ready to take them out. And they're like, we don't know what spooked them. We don't know what defused the situation either, and why we got to drive out. So they were really jumpy at those checkpoints. Some of us who covered protests in 2020, this one's going to sound pretty familiar to you, although of course on a much more awful scale. Well, they didn't listen to our instructions at the checkpoint and almost hit one of our officers with a car. Does that sound familiar from some of our coverage in 2020? Because it sure sounds familiar to me. Of course, not with these kind of consequences. So we have that story that has come out today. There was another news crew today on camera, and that's Sky News. Sky News is News Corp, which is Murdoch, which is part of Fox News. Sky News is Australia based, and Sky News is not perfect. They've had their YouTube channel taken down a couple of times for disinformation on it, talking about, I won't say it on TikTok in particular, talking about this. This was also said to me by a Malcontent. Thank you so much, because now I could just go this. I don't say the word we're not supposed to ever say. Talking about this. But they're kind of like ITV. And if crap's going down and Sky News is there, not good. I'm trying to think, who was the CNN reporter years ago? I can't think of her name. Christiane Amanpour, right? If 25 years ago, if Christiane Amanpour is showing up in your town, not good sign. Not a good sign. Sky News is in your town, not a good sign. They shot up their vehicle. It's on Sky News's video. So, and this is now the 4th documented attack on journalists by Russian forces in the span of 5 days, with 1 death and 3 wounded. People that know me, old school malcontents, know this is a passionate issue for me. This is a really passionate issue. The press has a fundamental obligation to report the news. And if you go back to the Battle of Marathon and the legendary 26.2 mile run for the "we won, and now I'm going to die of a heart attack because I ran 26.2 miles without stopping to tell you," you could say that was the first combat journalist in the history of the planet, was at the Battle of Marathon. So there have been combat journalists since the beginning. And once upon a time, journalists were off limits. Now, journalists embedded with a unit, they know what they're signing up for. Believe me, not all of them. Some of them are total a-holes. Total a-holes, and I get it. And others are able to care for themselves. They're not going to get in the way, and they know what they've signed up for. There are definitely some Walter Mitty, mom basement Call of Duty types in the press corps. I won't deny that for a second. And some of them, when things get spicy, when things get real spicy, people reveal their true colors. I have never been under live fire. I hope I am never under live fire. I don't know how I would operate under live fire. I have operated, as old school malcontents know, in very spicy conditions. And I learned a lot about who I am. And I'm really calm under spicy conditions. Not everyone is. But reporters are, it's a no-no. It's a huge no-no. And if it's one thing if a reporter is embedded and there's a big battle that goes on, and a mortar lands and the reporter has their numbers up. If you really think about combat, this is why some people drive me crazy. They come here, I'm gonna get my AK-15. I'm gonna get me my big old pick-em-up truck. I'm gonna get me a pack of Marlboros. I'm gonna put on my class 4, and I'm gonna kick me some ass. You're the same guy complaining that gasoline is $5 a gallon for your lifted pickup truck that gets 12 miles to the gallon. If shit is really that bad, where are you filling up your pickup truck? That's like number one. These are the people. Because, look, I'm going to editorialize for a little bit here. If you got gangster energy, you don't flex. Because you don't have to. Because you know you have it. People that flex and they try to give off that energy, those are the ones that are going to poop their pants. Every single time. Because gangsters don't have to flex. The end. It's the same thing. Somebody, let me show you all the good works that I do. People that do good works, people that do good things, don't need to transmit it. Because they just see it. If you're doing things right, here's one of my favorite quotes of all time. And it's ironically from Futurama. When you're doing things right, people may not know you're doing anything at all. And that is so true. Anyway, I like totally went off the rails in this conversation on the press and the role in the media in combat. But when you're targeting the press, when you are targeting the press, old school malcontents know, because they saw it happen on camera, I have been targeted directly, and not just me. They saw other journalists targeted. When you target the press, then you have something to hide. It's that simple. If you don't want the press around and you don't want your story told, then you have something to hide. And here's the thing. Who is losing the disinformation war, right? There's a shooting war. There's a pew-pew war. Damn, I'm going to get in trouble with TikTok. There's a pew-pew war. And there, by the way, let's pause for the cause. Spam those hearts. Spam those hearts. Let our mods and admins know. Blow them up. Let those mods and admins know you really appreciate the hard work they're doing now to keep the communication areas mostly pest-free. Let those mods and admins know you really appreciate the hard work that they're doing there. Good guys want the press there. It's a state secret. I'm going to quote another TV show. I'm going to quote Star Trek: The Next Generation. Saying it's state secret is the language of the oppressor. And that's really true also. And if you're shooting press, you have something to hide. And I'm going to challenge everybody to think about this. Let's step back and let's step forward and then step back. And now we're dancing. Why have we not seen one single video from anyone, including Russian state media, of joyous people in Luhansk or in Donetsk or anywhere else in Donbass? One video, just one, of them welcoming their liberators. Where's the pictures? Where's the video? Where? Has anybody seen it? Why was it the first thing that they did after they cut the gas and blew out the roofs and windows to try to force people out of their homes? Why was it then the next thing they did was cut the internet and the cell phones? Why are they cutting cell coverage when they take over an area? That's one of the reasons we know they do not have full control. Are they in charge? Yes. In Kherson? Yes. Do they have full control? No. How do we know? Because the internet and the cell phones are still on. Where's the internet and cell phones? In Luhansk, in Donetsk, in Donbass. Why is there no news out of there, including from Russian state-sponsored media? Nothing. Where are the videos of the glorious, brave liberators? State secret is the language of the oppressor, and that is what we're seeing happening in Russia right now. And when you target press, you got something to hide. And part of the reason I'm passionate about it is people go through experiences in life and it changes you. 2020 was a massive change of a year for me, personally. I went to Namibia. I was in the Katatura slums. I filmed. I'm going to get roasted on Twitch, Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube because people are going to go, "Where is the documentary? It's in the can. It's still in post." It's been totally delayed because of this, the disease we shall not mention, because I will offend the TikTok gods. TikTok, you really got to fix this. You really do. It shouldn't be this bad. And I'm not making a joke. That is why. I went to Namibia. I went to the Katatura slums. I saw things there that have changed me forever. That when people say things like, the United States is becoming a third world country. Yeah. Mm-hmm. Uh, okay. Spend some time talking to people, filming in the Katatura slums and hearing about their lives and what's going on there and where they have to get their drinking water and the conditions they live in. And you get back to me on how the United States is the third world country. Seattle is dying. This is like one of the biggest jokes in Seattle right now. Seriously, if you're not from Seattle, Seattle is not dying. We were not burned down to the ground. We like when the shit was hitting the fan in 2020, we were all getting, weren't we? Blow up the comments if you're from Seattle. Were we not getting phone calls from our relatives? Well, I saw the news. It looked very terrible there. Are you okay? And we're like, what are you talking about? It's 4 blocks and a park. The first week was a farmer's market. Well, there we go. Okay, it was a farmer's market in Tacoma, to steal a joke that I once heard. Sorry, Tacoma, we do love you. There were bouncy castles. I'm not saying that to be snarky. Seattle, let them know. Were there bouncy castles in CHOP? Blow up the comments if you were in CHOP. For the barbecue and the music and the dancing and the movies and the crafts and the learning circles and the bouncy castles. There were things they didn't want you to know because it's the language of the oppressor. It's a whole separate story. I know I've gone off the rails. Let's talk about, we're going to change this controversial topic. Let's talk about how we gather information on Ukraine and how do we trust and verify? How do we find all of this stuff? We actually are doing a lot of what military intelligence is using, reading on what military intelligence is doing. We're doing a lot. Now, of course, they have access to things that we don't have, like Q4 Global Hawk drones and P-8 Orions and EB-4s and EB-6s and Takamo planes. And of course, we don't have, and we're not talking to the Iranian military. We don't have access to any of that stuff. I get it. However, military experts are doing a lot of watching TikTok and reading stuff on Twitter to figure out what's going on. So, and a lot of you tag us now in videos. And some of you are just like, is this true? Tag a video. And sometimes if we no respond, it's because this has already been sent to us 10 times. And especially if you don't see us cover it, it means one of two things. We can't validate it, or we already know it's like, no, this isn't real. Or there's some big Hugh telling it where it's like, no, this isn't real. Because a good example of this, there's a video that was out today. Trusted source, very, very highly trusted source, showing allegedly a convoy today or when I say today, it would be yesterday now, heading northwest, so over the Dnieper River and heading northwest out of Kherson, being escorted by a anti-aircraft, a Russian anti-aircraft vehicle. I can't remember the designation off of my head. Radar is active on it. It's a Russian convoy. It's got, I believe it had V markings on it. Don't hold me to that, kind of going from memory again. It does, the location matched up, but the weather didn't. It was a bright, sunny, beautiful, perfect day in that video. And it wasn't exactly a bright, sunny, perfect, beautiful day yesterday over central Ukraine. It wasn't an awful day, but the weather didn't match. And so that's one of the things we do. That's like what's the weather? Does the weather match? Because the weather data we can look at actually real easy. So that's kind of step one. The next thing we do is we'll look and see, is this being amplified by reliable sources? And so there are sources that we look at, particularly on Twitter, journalists, military experts. Are they amplifying this? And what is their opinion and view on what they're seeing in there? sometimes we'll see something and there's a long comment thread on there. And sometimes in those long comment threads, a lot of times, particularly if something is being amplified and amplified by somebody that is very respected and very intelligent in that space, the geolocation information is popped up there. Hey, I found it here, and that saves us a ton of time because geolocation can suck. And the geolocation information's there. And then it's that simple. You go into Google Maps, you type in the Latin long, and you start comparing. And a lot of places, not everywhere in Ukraine or Belarus, have Street View. So it gets a little harder because then you have to find maybe the closest building that has pictures and hope that there are multiple pictures and get angles. Good example of that was this whole thing. Remember how the story died out about Belarusian hospitals are completely overwhelmed with the Russian wounded. And there was this video that came out a few days ago showing by trains, there's trains and there's an ambulance. And this is the proof of overwhelmed Belarusian hospitals. So our first step was this video even legit? And this was one where we couldn't find Latin long on it. So I'm going to get into what happens when somebody else hasn't done the homework for us and we can borrow their note. Can we look at your desk? Oh, Latin, thank you. All right, we could use that. This one we didn't have a Latin long. So now, okay, they're saying hospitals. So let's start. Where are we going to start? Well, we're going to start looking at hospitals in the city, Mazir, right? We'll start looking at, man, I can't believe I remembered this stuff off the top of my head. We're looking at all the hospitals in Mazir. What is this? Nothing. There's nothing right by train tracks. It's like, well, all right, this has got a little harder. Let's start looking along, because you can look on Google Maps and you can see the train tracks. So we'll start following the train tracks on Google Maps, looking for spots where we can get a view and go, right, and start looking around and go, is there anything that matches up? We were this close on that video, actually, to go, this is cap, right? Not buying it. And someone else found Latin long. So on that one, we got to borrow someone's notes. And when we got the Latin long, when we looked at the aerial view, it was like, this really does kind of look like it, but we weren't convinced. There were a couple of things that, and part of it is when you're looking at the aerial view, it's not the same time of the year. You could have it taken later in the day. You get long shadow, and that was the case of this one. There's some long shadows, so it's a little hard to kind of figure out what's really there. But there was a building about 150 meters to the south. We were so lucky because there were pictures from the roof of the building, and from those pictures we go, aha, there are these, I presume they're barns. They look like storage barns of some kind. There is this long line of these, silverish roof, white-sided barns. Boom. This video is authentic. Now, we did look like on Belarusian news. We couldn't see anything about problems with hospitals. Interestingly, right, because the hospital's hours, whether they're open or closed, are still showing up on Google. Hospitals that would normally be closed were showing closed. So they're probably just more like day clinics. The hospitals are open for 24 hours. We're, of course, still showing that they were open. Now, there's no way for us to know how many patients they have in Belarus. Of course, is never going to share that. But when we ran that story authenticating that video, you can go find that TikTok. I think it's actually a 60-second one, so it's a 1 minute. When we ran that story, we flat out said, all we're seeing here is an ambulance, at most 24 wounded soldiers, and they all look pretty ambulatory. So are Russian wounded soldiers getting transferred to Belarus to go to civilian hospitals? Yes, validated. Does this mean that Belarusian hospitals are at the brink of collapse because there are so many wounded? That doesn't prove it. And that's kind of how we positioned it. So I hope that helps on how we validate photos and pictures. And so that's one thing that we do. Let's talk about all of the rumors about Russia's going to establish martial law, right? This was rolling up. By the way, I am not, in explaining this, do not go after other creators. Well, the Malcontent said, He said, no, please, that is not what I'm saying. I am answering the question on how we validate the facts. Do not go after other creators, please. If we saw a creator that was blatantly spreading misinformation, then there are ways to handle that. So please, I can't stress it enough because people are just, no, don't. That's not the point of this. We never talked about martial law declaration. Well, why? Because it wasn't really coming from any trusted news sources. I hate to say this as somebody who is someone who's Jewish, although I've never been to Israel, like Jerusalem Post, Times of Israel. I hate to say it. For coverage on this, they're trash. They're just trash. They are not valid sources. And sometimes when you see something, okay, I'll give you a better example. The head of the equivalent of the Joint Chiefs of Staff for the Russian military, he has been fired. He's going to get fired. He's been fired. Remember that one earlier in the week? And I mean, everybody was running with this. Now, I want to talk about one thing that gave this weight. There was, and I believe we did a TikTok on this on Saturday last week or Sunday, where we gave some weight to Putin's not happy. No kidding. Who would be in his shoes? That Putin's not happy, and he's kind of issued an ultimatum of, I want Kyiv by Monday or else. And to quote the very old South Park, or else what? Exactly. So I think this is what put some air in that balloon. That story, that came up, because we started having self-doubt because we weren't running with it. And it was just everywhere. And it was coming from, including some people that we have deep trust from. And we're like, we can't validate this. Where's this coming from? And where it came from was a tweet from an individual who worked closely with this general, and I can't remember any of the names. Pop them up in the comments for me, by the way. Because I'm sure people are like, this dude and that dude. And it's out of my brain. And it all came from this one tweet. And even in the tweet, he then followed up and it was like, I'm paraphrasing. I didn't say it happened. I said, I'm being told it's going down. Here's the thing. Put yourself in Vladimir Putin's very small shoes. Did you know he's 5'6"? Put yourself in Vladimir Putin's very small shoes. My feet would hurt. We're size 12s. You'd have to cut off my toes. First of all, the general's names. First of all, the general's name. Not the general. I saw something else here. Hey, one of the mods or admins in the big chat, not on because it's scrolling so fast on TikTok, I can't get it. If you could look up their name and pop it into the chat, that would be great. Because now I'm just not going to let it go, and people that know me know I'm not going to let it go. He's been equivalent of the Joint Chiefs of Staff for Russia since 2012, and he's really popular. And what is the official word out of the Kremlin, from the Ministry of Defense, and from Putin? Everything is going to plan. Everything is great. Everything is good. We're all on vacation in Ukraine. Everybody is drinking punch and pie. Stop asking me questions. I'm turning off all the news because it's going so good. We don't want to tell you how good it's going because it's a state secret. State secret is the language of the oppressor. If he fired then what's the message? Well, the message is it's not going good. He's stuck with his boy. And they appear to really be screwing up. So we didn't run with the story. Of course, he wasn't fired. And I can't stress enough, don't go after the creators that amplified this, because I explained to you why there was weight to this. And we almost put it in an update. We almost put it in. It was written. It was written into the script. And I was like, you know what? We're taking it out. I'm just not there. And it goes back to Old school malcontents. I keep saying old school because there's like 55,000 of you in the last week. Old school malcontents, no. I would rather be right than first. Of course we want to be first. It's exciting to be first and break the story and have the receipts. But in the fog of war, we just rather be right. And if right means that we're going to report on something 6 hours after it happened, but we don't have to walk something back, I would rather do that than have to walk something back. And we will walk things back. I walk things back today on TikTok. People on the other channels, people to go to our news website, malcontentnews.com. No, we have an error and omission policy. We issue retractions. We issue corrections all the time. I am not afraid to go. We got something wrong. Especially when somebody brings receipts. Because the truth matters. I've heard somebody say, you keep saying the truth matters. I think you're a propagandist. What? Did you eat paint chips as a child? Like what? What? So you're telling me the truth doesn't matter? Or we're not supposed to say that the truth matters? People. There's another thing I want to talk about. You guys are getting a big random stream of consciousness tonight. Let me check your comments. Thank you so much. Oh my goodness, thank you everybody. Hey TikTok, do me a favor. In the comments, let me know where you're from. When we opened it up, people, same thing. If you're on our other channels, and by the way, if you're on TikTok and you want to watch on, like, because you're talking the other channels, if you go to malcontentnews.tv, all you see is a bigger picture of me. But if you go to malcontentnews.tv, you don't want to watch me in vertical, you want to watch me in 1080p, you can watch me in 1080p over at malcontentnews.tv. It'll take you right to our Twitch channel. You don't need the app. You don't need an account. You will get something that goes, hey there, little fella. Are you 18? And you say, yes, by God, because you better be 18. Yes, I'm 18, sir. And you can watch us then on Twitch. Okay. So we'll just bring that up for a moment. Let's see, where was I going with this? Trust but verify. Gerasimov, thank you so much. General Boomer comes through again. Boomer's our head of research. Give Boomer love. She's modding right now on our 4 other channels. She's not on TikTok. So TikTok, you can't give her love. If you're on their other channels, Boomer's our head of research. She does an amazing job. She is the queen of the skies. She is the one, like, on the air radar. It's like, there's this plane here, that helicopter there, this plane here, this one's going that way, that one's going that way, that tanker's going to hook up with this plane here. And amazing, just amazing work. Thank you, Boomer. And yes, there's more of us, but Boomer's the head. She's the brains behind the operation. I'm the very reluctant face. No, Boomer is not a 747. That's the name that she likes to go by, is Boomer. So we also have senior staff on our website. If you go up on our website, our list of our senior staff is there. One of our writers, Abby Lee Hood is written for the New York Times, the Washington Post. We're super honored. Renee Rackety, another writer for us and a field producer. Renee is up for a Pacific Northwest Emmy and another journalism award. Both of those on projects that she did in partnership with us. So super exciting. Once the whole list of the Emmy thing gets come out, we get to say we're an Emmy nominated. Oh, it's so exciting. You just heard it first. Isn't that cool? I don't know if I can repeat this. Tanker hookups, it's a thing. Oh my God, Boomer. I'm turning red. I can see it. I'm turning red. Oh my God, Rashi. She watched the planes do loops and helps us find the proof. Oh my God. I have a great team. Oh, Renee. Oh, Renee's on TikTok. TikTok, Renee. Renee, TikTok. Renee is one of our field producers, writers. She does great work. She does amazing work covering LGBTQIA and political issues in the city of Seattle. And she is one heck of a. She did amazing work in the protests. She did absolutely amazing works in the protests, and she got significantly injured doing coverage in the protests. So Renee is fire. Absolutely. I don't know who made that comment on TikTok, but yes, Renee is fire. Absolutely. Oh my God, Renee rocks. I love this. I said I was going to talk about something else, and it totally escaped my brain. And I've been stalling, so I'm going to talk about something else, and then that brain cell will come back. What is going on with the Russian military? First of all, if we go back to our Cold War days, we have been taught since the 1950s, I wasn't around then. Man, if I was alive in the 1950s and I looked this good, like seriously, I wasn't around in the 1950s. But going back to the 1950s, there was you had McCarthyism, the Red Scare, 38th parallel. They've got the bomb. They write duck and cover. This is when all of this stuff started. U.S. military intelligence was dramatically overstating Russian military capabilities going back to the 1950s. Why would they do that? Because they wanted the money. They wanted the money. They wanted the toys. They wanted the boom. They wanted the planes. They wanted the tanks. They wanted the money. And I'm going to upset some people. I'm a recovering Reagan Democrat. I wasn't old enough to vote for Reagan, but I was totally into like Reaganomics and trickle down. And when I entered this world, I was a Republican. My father, it's very interesting. My father was my father was a Democrat, like a real Democrat. He worked on the McGovern campaign. If you're like, well, who's that? You go back to McGovern got his ass handed to him against Nixon, like handed to him. Massachusetts, the state I grew up in, was the only state that voted for McGovern. There was actually T-shirts that came out after Nixon was impeached. Again, I'm not old enough to remember any of this. I only read about it. Don't blame me. I'm from Massachusetts, which was to say the whole Nixon impeachment thing. But they overinflated it. The reason I bring up Reagan, history has shown that Reagan really didn't do a lot of good. And that's a whole separate TikTok for a whole different time. There is one thing that Reagan got right. And I will give Reagan credit for this to my dying breath, unless some evidence further down the line comes down the road. But we're 40 years into the evidence now. He bankrupted the Soviet Union, and we got out of the Cold War barely, without evaporating ourselves. And that is purely because we outspent the Russians on defense, and the Soviet Union couldn't keep up. And the Soviet Union had to do economic reforms in order to A, fill the coffers, and B, push down some growing unrest because life wasn't very good. And that cracked the door open to more information on what's going on, and Wrangler jeans and Michael Jackson, and we know the rest of the history. Berlin Wall comes down, old Soviet Union collapses, 1991. 1993, we have the October coup. Swan Lake plays for 3 days. Boris Yeltsin, the planet's favorite drunk. Boris Yeltsin was just pure comedy. And then we got Vlad the Impaler. So that's the one thing I'm going to give Reagan credit for. Reagan bankrupted the Soviet Union. But we have continued this. They're the second most powerful military on earth, right? This message has been continued on and on and on and on. Take away their nuclear. I'm going to keep doing that to you, TikTok. Take away their nuclear arsenal. They're a regional power at best. I have said that. People in my inner circle know I have said that for years. They don't have a blue water navy. What's a blue water navy? The United States is really the only navy on the planet that has a blue water navy. A blue water navy is we can project our power anywhere on any ocean. So if we wanted to do military operations in the middle of the Pacific, we can do that because we have carrier battle groups. We're the only country that has carrier battle groups. Yeah, I know. The British have one. I know the French. China's got the ski jump thing. They're working on building a legit aircraft carrier. Russia's got like their ski jump thing. They have all the submarines. They're in bad shape. Their submarine fleet is in bad shape, and they do not have the blue water navy support. So if you think of a carrier battle group, you have the carrier, you have cruisers, you have destroyers, you have escort ships, and you have submarines, all part of that carrier battle group. Yes, the big boomers, the ones that we don't want to ever have to use. Yes, they operate independently and they are set up to operate independently on their own months at a time, yada, yada, yada. I get that. And yeah, Russia has some of those, but it's not as good as they want. So what do we see? What are we seeing in Ukraine? Disinfo gal, Lindsay and I had chatted about this. I believe I chatted with her on a live about this too. And this is before everything went up and really blew up. Terrible choice of words. That's why I paused. And then as soon as it came out, I was like, that was the word I didn't want to say. Damn it. We know that Russian air defense systems are trash. Well, that's just your opinion. Oh, no. I could bring receipts that Russian air defense systems are trash. Where are those receipts? They're from Syria. Russia, don't you remember when like Assad was in trouble and it looked like he was going to lose control of Syria in the civil war? And he was like, help. And Russia was like, remember I talked about Tartus? If you stuck around this whole time, I talked about Tartus and the Russian naval base at Tartus and how that's their only warm water port on the planet. And that is only kind of the free port that they have on the Atlantic side of the planet. And so Tartus is really critical. And the Russian military, even when everything collapsed and they closed their military bases, Tartus always remained. They will never give up that naval base. And so they went and they came in. And don't you remember the headlines? They're bringing in this equipment. They're bringing in that equipment. They're bringing in this. There's going to be danger, right? Because there was all these air operations going on. And we learned they're trash. They didn't work. They don't work as advertised. They're hot garbage. The Su-25. Oh, this is going to be better than, right? Again, if you've been to these circles, I read. I love to read. I'm a voracious reader, but I am not a voracious reader of books. I'm a voracious reader of news. And then if I read something, I rat hole down it to validate it. The Su-25, oh my God, it's so much better than the F-35. The F-35 is garbage. The F-35 is trash. The F-35 never gets served. Why are we not doing that? What do we do with the F-35? The F-35 is not a perfect plane. I'm not praising the F-35. I'm a big F-22 fan. Big F-22 fan. And my understanding is we didn't go hot and heavy on the F-22 because actually we can't export it because there's so much super secret stuff. It's like, we're not going to sell that even to our allies. No, that's just for us. So the defense contractors couldn't make money off of it. Isn't that? We don't want the best plane. We just want the best plane we can sell to other people. It's a whole separate issue. Oh my God. The Su-57 program is a complete failure. Where are the Su-57s? Where? Hello? Bueller? When we had the F-117s, right, go back, Panama? Isn't that where we used F-117s first in Panama? Like, we didn't even know they existed, right? We used the F-117 stealth fighters. We have stealth fighters? Oh, look at this thing. This flies? If you've never seen F-117, it looks like a flying triangle. Like, it's just triangles. Just like a flying black triangle. And the thing is by modern standards, it's not stealthy at all anymore, right? We got F-35s on patrol right now. We've used our B-2s. We're not afraid to put our modern equipment in there. What is Russia using for ground attack? They're using Su-25s. And it's not the years on it, right? The A-10, which is kind of they're not even in the same league. Look, if you're Air Force, you're either going to hate me or you're going to love me for this. If I could be a driver, A-10. A-10 is my absolute favorite plane in the Air Force inventory. The A-10 is the most amazing, badass piece of military hardware for ground attack specifically that the U.S. Air Force has ever had in its inventory. These planes are nuts. Huge fan of the A-10. The Su-25 is the equivalent, and then the Su-34 is the more modernized version of the Su-25. Russia's flying Su-25s. Ukrainians have shot down Su-34s. And the Su-25s this week are getting creamed. The Bakhtiar TB2 drones that Turkey is sending on a daily supply via Poland, they're propeller driven. They're at mid-altitude. They are slow. These are easy targets for manpad. Manpad is man. You just, right? That's a manpad. These are easy targets. And the Ukrainian TB2s, they're just operating with impunity. Their air defense systems are trash. How bad are their radios? I've had a hard time believing this. I keep saying I'm going to do a TikTok on this. I'm going to do a TikTok on this. I'm going to do a TikTok on this. Up to the battalion level. What the hell do you mean battalion level? Platoons roll up into battalion. So battalion, think 250, 400 people in a unit. Up to the battalion level. They are using unencrypted, high-frequency radios that anybody can listen to. And there are TikToks on this, there are websites about this, and the frequencies are public. And the military broadcasts of the Russian military up to the battalion level operating on the ground in Ukraine are being broadcasted for everybody to hear. Some of it is mundane. And some of it, regardless of how you may be feeling about one side or the other, some of it is horrifying and sad. People screaming for their lives, people crying and begging for help. They're still people. I won't bring that one up. There's something that I won't, because I think people are raw and they're not going to want to hear it. But they're still people. Begging for food, begging for fuel. Lost. The lost ones are amusing. But I was Civil Air Patrol for 10 years. I wanted to go in the Air Force. I got to MEPS, had it all done. In MEPS, they found a undiscovered medical condition while I was going through my flight physical, and that was the end of my military career. The end. I was going to go in. I had my whole thing. I'm going to go in, train to be a paramedic. I'm going to become a nurse. I wanted to be like on the C-141 hospital planes. I want to stay up to maybe major. Then I'm going to go through, like, I had it all mapped out. And I was crushed. You know, imagine like at a young age, knowing that passionately what you wanted to do and just having that vision in your head and then having the rug ripped out from under your feet and there's nothing you can do. Bro, your eyes are trash. Well, like, we all know I needed glasses. No, you have like no depth of field. I have the thing where I see in a cartoon world. So I have no depth of field. It's really weird. Every now and then I get moments where I have depth of field, and it's like, whoa. People that have this will know this experience. If anybody's on here on any of these channels and they have this condition, they'll know what I'm talking about, which is you go into a 3D movie and you put on the glasses and your brain is just melted, totally melted. And like everyone else around you is like, what are you going? It's like, wait a minute, that's how you see things? Things have depth? What? That's why if you're ever in a car and I'm driving, it can be kind of a scary experience. But I will stop before I hit that car in front of me. My brain is just working out the distance with no depth of field. But anyway, this was my whole plan. Then I was going to go into the reserves. And because I have adrenaline issues and I have thrill issues, I was going to go into helicopters, private helicopters, big money there. You work, 48 hours on, then you get 5 days off. And of course, had I done that, had I taken that path, right, I definitely would have gone to Iraq. I might have gone to Afghanistan. I may have never got to do my friggin' reserve duty. I would have seen unspeakable, unspeakable awful trauma. I would not be the person who I am today. And even if I had gotten out, I would get out just in time to then have to deal with this and being told after my military service and everything that I did that I'm a crisis actor, I'm an enemy of the state, that George Soros is paid. Oh, wait a minute. I'm told that anyway because I'm a journalist. Funny joke. Anyway, that was my whole plan. They're using HF radios. But why did you bring up Civil Air Patrol and go on this whole flippin' ADHD fueled tangent? Because we were using HF radios. I was 14 years old using HF radios, unencrypted. It's 2022. The Russian military is using HF radios in combat, unencrypted. What? And now that it's come out that the frequencies that are using, ordinary people are jamming those frequencies. You can't make this stuff up. Why are they using HF radios? Because the encrypted digital radios they have don't work. They're trash. There are definitely modern tanks. There's a T-80. Military guys, don't kill me on this. BVM? BVT? No, the BVM's it's like a DVM, VDM, a T. It's like their state-of-the-art. It is their newest tank. Just came out in 2017. They just found, Ukrainians just found one without gas and captured one. I'm sure the British and the United States can't wait to get their hands on that to take it apart. Russian tanks. They still can't shoot on the fly. M1 Abrams could shoot on the fly. What does that mean? That means it can be moving and track a target while it's moving, and Russian tanks have to stop. They can shoot on the fly. There's nothing that says, does not say we have to stop. Nothing says they have to stop. But they're not, an M1 Abrams on the fly is dead ass accurate. They're kind of winging it if they're firing on the fly. Their equipment's trash. They have a conscript army who don't want to be there. I don't know if I'm fully bought into this whole, I thought this was a training exercise. I know, and I've seen all the videos. I don't know if I'm fully bought into it. This feels really Colonel Klink, Hogan's Heroes, Sergeant Schultz, I know nothing. Like, you're in a unit, you're getting shot at, you're shooting back at people. What part of this isn't a training exercise did you not understand? At what point did you decide this wasn't a training exercise? Or is that what you were told to say when you were captured? Is this your cover story? I'm not buying it. But that's opinion. You're getting opinion. Generally, if I do lives like this, you're getting a lot of opinion. I kind of did all the news up front. I talked about the tires. Tires are trash. There are some real antiques that we're seeing that the Russian military is using from a vehicle standpoint. There are some tanks that we're seeing in pretty bad state of repair. I'm not talking tanks that have been damaged or captured. Just videos of people. We see civilians confronting tanks and all. And some of these videos, I'm not seeing it. These are what the military experts are commenting on. They're just like, oh my God, this tank's in terrible shape. I'm just looking at it. I'm like, I see a tank. What do you mean it's in terrible shape? So I want to be really careful that I'm repeating what people are telling me and people that know way better than me. Their tanks aren't in good shape. You know, where's their electronic warfare capability? They don't have one. And if they have one, they can't use it because they're having to. This is probably why, because that's one of the things people are saying. Where is their electronic warfare? When you think of electronic warfare, by the way, that isn't like internet. I'm not talking about PSYOPs. or disinformation campaigns. Electronic warfare is jamming of radio signals. It is using signals to literally cook or destroy, cell towers, or literally, when I say overload them, and so they thermal out. That's what I mean by electronic warfare. It's jamming missiles. They can't use it because they're having to use HF radios, and if they use electronic warfare, they would block their own communications. If we've learned anything in the last 10 days, the Russian military machine is in a terrible state. And if it wasn't in a terrible state, then Russia wouldn't have shut down all of the independent media that were pointing out, wait a minute, what's going on? Because if the Russian people found out what was going on, one of the things that they would go is, well, wait a minute, where did all this money go? We were told we're building this great military. Where did the money go? We should be asking the same questions, by the way, in the United States. Russia does not have the exclusive patent on, excuse me, we're spending $750 billion, and we're not getting a whole lot of visibility of where some of those $750 billion is going. Is it? No, state secret, don't ask. Oh, okay. Kind of would like to know where my tax dollars are going, because I see some of the corruption things that we've seen really stark in Russia, in the Russian military. I see a little bit, not anything to the degree we're seeing there, but some of the things I have seen on military TikTok way before I just come. People in country, people in the shit, people in the sandboxes, and they're not an MRE. They're a FOB, forward operating base, right? And their meals are trash. They're just trash. And there's been news stories running this and how much these military contractor bastards are getting charged to pay for. And their argument is, well, we have to do the security and background checks, and everybody's going here, and it's hard to bring in the food and the supplies. And look, when I left journalism for the first time, I did leave journalism in 2004. I went to work Microsoft, AFCES, which sets up all of the base exchanges all over the planet. They could set up a base exchange at some crappy forward operating base in like a week. People think, when people think of corporations that have amazing logistics, they think Amazon, or I don't like. If anybody thinks FedEx anymore, you need your head checked. I used to put FedEx on that list. Not anymore. They think Amazon. They think Walmart. They think Home Depot. Home Depot's got amazing logistics. They think Kroger. Kroger, big chain of grocery, right? These are the companies people are like, the Armed Force Services, because that's not military, right? It's a private company. And they're one of the largest retailers of the planet that if you're not military, you've never heard of them before. Their logistics is mind-melting. They could literally set up a base exchange at some crappy forward operating base in Afghanistan in like a couple of weeks, and they could pack everything up on the fly and get it out of there just as fast. It's really stunning what they could do. So these military contractors that are feeding our finest chicken nuggies that are cold, and you're just like, there's not even enough calories in that container. They're like, yeah, that's $80. US taxpayer, $80. That's what I mean by, I'm seeing this same thing creeping into the US military. But it's a whole next level in the Russian military. If Putin didn't have the boom, if he didn't have that arsenal, their military is nothing. And I have said that for years. And now it's playing out. I opened up almost, I don't even know how long I've been talking like 2 hours. I got to wind this up. But there's like 600 of you watching, and I don't know how many over here. There's only 37. Everyone's on TikTok. We've ignored those other channels too long. What happened? Did we lose Twitch? Did we lose Twitch? Oh, Twitch. All right, Twitch glitched. I'm seeing all these comments here. That's why there's only 37. We lost Twitch. Twitch glitched, but Twitch is back. Okay. Sorry about that. Yeah, we probably need to wrap this up. This is what I'll do. I'm going to take your questions. I think there's a way here. Yeah, we got questions. Let's do your questions. No, I don't want to explore that right now. Oh, for the love of God. There's just old Q&A. Is Q&A not on TikTok? Go ahead, give me your questions. I'll try and answer them. Woo, boogie. Wow, you say questions and what do I think Ukrainians should have done before the start of the war to claim Russia? There's nothing they could have done. The only thing they could have done is said, welcome Vlad the Impaler. Please start impaling us. That's all they could have said. Is the ghost still alive? I don't hate to rain on anybody's parade. I mean, look, our team, and there's a couple of our team members, right, they're modding on both channels. They could back this up. You know, our view on the Ghost of Kiev is like, we want to believe. Let's just leave it at that. We want to believe that the Ghost of Kiev story is real. Can we just leave it at that? We'll leave it at that. I don't know. One thing we know is that Putin is isolated, very afraid. He sits at this table 20 meters away from people. He's like a real germaphobe. And I know that's something that he doesn't project, right? Okay, he projects. But remember, what did I start with? Gangsters don't gotta flex, because gangsters just know. That's it. Like, let's go through our presidents since I've been alive, and have like cognizant of what's going on. So we start with Reagan. Reagan was a gangster. He didn't flex. Clinton was a gangster. He didn't flex. I know people don't like hearing that. Bush, did I skip? Oh, I skipped Bush 41. Bush 41, gangster. He didn't flex. Bush 43, sometimes, and other times no. And sometimes you get real bellicose, and other times you walk it back. He kind of flexed. Obama didn't flex. The other guy, I got the biggest rocks in the world, man. Don't make me use them. Oh yeah, gangsters don't gotta flex, and Putin flexes. You know, anything's possible. It's speculation. Anything's possible. I do. That's a great question. Do I think that the condition of Russia's conventional military is an indication of their condition of their nukes? I do. It may not necessarily mean that they don't work. It doesn't mean that you might walk out of your house one morning and go, well, this is very interesting. There is an ICBM. You would never see the ICBM. There is a warhead in my front yard. And my teeth have never been whiter, and my tomatoes now weigh 10 pounds. I don't mean that. Where they very well could have issues is in command and control, communications, you know, what are we doing? That's where I think it would fall apart. Or they're going to have issues. I shouldn't say fall apart. I would not question the reliability of the boom itself. I would have some question on, as an entire force readiness, the readiness of some of their launch vehicles. Yeah, I think it does give us some insight onto the state of things. But I wouldn't go, well, it can't happen because they're just going to go beep or something like that. If that makes sense. It's a great question. I love great questions. That's interesting. I had heard that too about Adolf, that he was also kind of a germaphobe, compulsive hand washer. It's kind of weird. I like the camera angle better on TikTok. Thank you, Hurricane. I don't know how to take that. EMP. Someone's asking about EMP. Wow, this would be. You're taking this conversation down a dark alley. But okay, let's go down the dark alley. Yeah, EMP. So if you know what that is, electromagnetic pulse, and you use a nuke, it produces a big EMP over a large area. EMP will cook basically anything that is electronic or have microchips in it. It cooks the power grids, cooks your transformers, and uh, the belief is for military strategists, whether it would be a tactical strike or either a preemptive or a responsive strike, that EMP would lead the actual really bad part. So you would detonate a nuke at a very high altitude, at an altitude where there'd be a flash, there's going to be, a boom, but there is no major shock wave. There is kind of, think of it like on not the edge of space, but lower than that. And the idea of that is that EMP then covers a wide area, and it takes out electricity, internet, cell phone, regular phone, all communications, transportation, cars, buses, trains. Yeah, civilian aircraft fall out of the sky. They're not set up for EMP. And that creates chaos. And then the real boom follows after that. So that's what the belief is, that that could be. Now, the other thing is they could just do an EMP as a, don't, because then, but of course the thing is, they see it coming over, right? Put on their side. You see it on radar, right? You see it on the satellite, see it on radar coming over. Are you going to wait to find? Put yourself in the seat of the other side. Are you going to wait and see? So this whole idea of like the EMP warning, and then it stops there, is ludicrous to me. It looks like a ton of like comments and questions when I was talking about EMP. I saw someone comment on the TikTok famous shirt. A Malcontent. Somebody said we have a wish list up on our link tree, and somebody got it on the wish list, and I absolutely love this. I do not think they're saving better equipment. Okay, I think I've scrolled up and caught up to your questions. I do not think that they're saving that. That makes no sense. I've heard this argument. I'm like, where in military history do you said? First of all, what military has 20% of their force are complete scrubs? That's number one. That's not a military, right? They've 190,000 troops. They've committed 90% of them now. And let's remember, where were we 10 days ago? Well, Ukraine won't last a week. Well, Ukraine's lasted more than a week. Zelensky's still in charge. Kiev still is the capital and a free city, and the Russians have huge problems. And they've brought in the B team. They have brought in not only the A team, but they've brought in the most ruthless members. Right, the Chechens are coming, and the situation hasn't really improved that much since they've showed up. Let's see, what are the Chechens kind of doing? Well, let's see. They thought it was a good idea to start firing shells, tank rounds, and missiles at the largest nuclear power plant in Europe. That's something that they've brought to the table. Look, the Russians lost a one-star general, major general. The Russian Paratrooper Association was like, yes. Oh, and once they admitted that they lost a general, this is where the whole "we're not going to talk about this anymore" thing happened. It is never good. It is never good if you lose a one-star general in combat. It is never good. This was a battle-hardened guy of their 7th Airborne who have been in the shit. They were in Syria. They battle-hardened. And you got to figure this wasn't just the general that got killed, right? Because the general isn't just out chilling by himself. Hey, you know what? I'm going to go do recon by myself and get back to you like I'm Captain Picard of the Star Trek, the Starship Enterprise. This doesn't happen. Even generals that are fighting with their men are going to be well defended. So to get to the general and kill the general, that means a lot of other people in the 7th Airborne were also killed. So it's not going good. And they've got the A team. They got the B team. They got the C team. Their equipment is crap. Their training is crap. Their morale is crap. Their military is crap. It's exposed for the world to see. I see the comment. It's only a little over a week. Absolutely, it's a little over a week. Where were we 10 days ago? Oh, this would be done. What did Russia say? They're just going to surrender. It kind of looked like that for the first 6 to 8 hours. Oh, good question. What happened to the peace ceasefire thing? Well, it's not a full ceasefire. We called it a partial ceasefire because it would be a 3-minute TikTok on its own to explain what this is. And actually, I'm glad you brought that up. Your questions are coming by so fast. If I am missing your questions, I am so sorry. They're coming so fast. I wanted to talk about this. When I was talking about allegations of war crime, this brain cell didn't fall off. So the deal that they've come up with, but the details aren't out in the deal, is they're going to set up corridors. Excuse me, water. They're going to set up corridors so that humanitarian aid can move in and foreign nationals and civilians who want to get out can move out in places like Mariupol, Kharkiv. That's what they're saying. They did this in Syria. Russia did this exact same thing in Syria. And they honored it, and they let people get out. But then what they said was, okay, we gave everybody a chance to go. So anybody that's left, you're an enemy combatant, because clearly we gave you a chance to just leave, and you didn't. And as an enemy combatant, you have no protection under the Geneva Convention. You're an irregular soldier, and we can do with you whatever we want, including maim, kill, rape, execute, whatever, with impunity, because that's what the Geneva Convention says. The Geneva Convention only provides protection to people aligned with the military. Here's a crazy ass fact. Do you know why Civil Air Patrol, even the cadets, wear the Air Force uniform? I learned this when I was in Civil Air Patrol. It's because if it's ever got really crazy, because you had that uniform on and your membership number and all, you're not considered regular forces. This is why it is the civilian auxiliary chartered by Congress of the U.S. Air Force, because it provides Geneva Convention protection to the Civil Air Patrol. Is that a wild little factoid to learn? Hope you never have to test that one out. It's not the only reason they wear it, but that is part of the reason. But this is what Russia did in Syria. They did it in Dagestan. They did it in Chechnya. They did it in Georgia. I think it's a shit deal after I learned these details. I think it's a shit deal. I think it just opens things up for human rights atrocities that they then can get away with. And I think they should tell them to stick the deal up their ass. But Zelensky is backed into a corner, just like in Dagestan, just like in Syria, just like in Georgia. So I think it's a terrible deal. Oh, a lot of them do. Esser rate watch. That's interesting. I was thinking about that today because we haven't brought up numbers in a while. There's no way to know. What's the last set of numbers we saw? Russia admitted 500. We know that's low. And look, even if you're like, you just hate Putin, come on. Every military does this, including the United States. We know that number's low. Last number we saw, if we compare to the 498, by the way, if you want to get to, it's not 500, it was 498. Quit exaggerating. The number when Russia said, yes, we've lost 498 people, Ukrainian number that came out on that day was 5,300. Of course, Ukraine is going to inflate the number because every military on the planet does that too. That doesn't mean that they're evil and awful also. This is what happens. So the truth is somewhere between. If you're yay Russia, then of course it's 498. If you are yay Ukraine to the point of no objectivity, then of course it's 5,300. And if you're going to look at objective, you're going to go, yeah, both those numbers aren't reality. It's somewhere in between. It's higher than 500. It's lower than 5,300. But here's the thing. We can extrapolate something out of that. I love data, by the way. Data is my thing. This is why when we were covering this and why we started initially blowing up on TikTok was our coverage on this. Because I'm a big data nerd. I love data. And when you're looking at epidemiology, it's data. You're just pouring through data. You're looking at data. You're looking at numbers, data, data, data. One of the things that we know when we look at other modern conflicts around the world, the KIA number, killed in action, yeeted in action, TikTok. The WIA number, wounded in action, is somewhere between 2x to 4x higher. Now, what did the Kremlin report, Ministry of Defense in Russia? Well, they said 498 KIA, 1,597 WIA. And to be officially categorized WIA, wounded in action, this isn't a Band-Aid on your forehead. This is to get wounded in action. You have shown up at an aid station somewhere and somebody was like, yeah, that bone shouldn't be sticking out of your body like that. So yeah, go sit over there. I may not necessarily be bone sticking out of your body, but it's like, you're out of the game. You're on injured reserve. They might put you back, you might go, if I use a football analogy, you might go into the locker room at halftime and be back out on the field. But these aren't boo-boos if you're going to be listed on a report as wounded in action. And again, we know they're cooking the books, both sides, and we've never seen a wounded in action number from Ukraine, meaning how many, we know that there's some Russian soldiers that are being treated in Ukrainian hospitals. We've never seen any numbers on that. We've also never seen any official captured numbers. They gave them a little bit. This goes back to what I was saying earlier about, yes, there's captures and surrenders, but it's not thousands and thousands because Ukraine be facing a humanitarian crisis with huge number of POWs. If we look at, and that was on day 7, right? Where am I going with this? If we extrapolate that number, 70% of forces committed at that point, 120,000 troops. And if we go, okay, it's somewhere in the middle. Let's say it's 2,000 killed. And then another 6,000 wounded. That's 8,000 casualties. When you hear casualties, casualty is KIA, WIA, MIA, and MIA. Those are your casualties. Confirmed captured is not a casualty, right? So we also know there's MIA on the Russian side. Well, there has to be because there's abandoned vehicles everywhere, and they haven't said boo about MIA. So let's say it's 8,000 KIA, WA, casualties. 8,000 casualties on 120,000 troops in modern warfare is appalling. In a modern army, like from Russia, is appalling numbers. Look at how many troops rotated through from the United States, KAWA, over 20 years. Afghanistan, Iraq, toeholds in Syria, Kuwait. No, actually, there wasn't really a shit that happened. Well, a little bit of shit happened to Kuwait. We hear a little stuff there, right? Hit and run stuff in Pakistan. 20 years of this. And look at the number, the total number of forces that rotated through, and our KIA and our WA numbers, and then do the percentage. The numbers, and again, I'm not even using the Ukrainian numbers. I'm leaning, right? Ukraine says 5,300, they're saying 500. I'm saying, okay, let's make up a number. It's 2,000. We'll lean towards Russia. And then we can extrapolate out because they said 1,600 wounded to 500. So that's X3. So we'll say 2,000, X3 is 8,000. So this is, I'm not yanking them out of my butt. I'm using math. And I'm not saying those are the numbers. That's my opinion. 8,000 casualties and 120,000 troops in a week? In a week? Like, this is, seriously, 150,000 troops landed in the first 24 hours at Omaha in the D-Day invasion, not Omaha Beach. The entire D-Day invasion, 150,000 troops in the first 24 hours landed on the beaches of Normandy. 10,000 casualties. 10,000 casualties. So that should give you a benchmark on how horrific the situation is for the Russian military. Math. Just horrific. And the only way they can keep the lid on, this is why they've cracked down on the news. And this is why they've made it illegal to even talk about it. Because my brother-in-law, who's gone, died of cancer. He was exposed to Agent Orange, Vietnam. If you ever saw the TV show, if you're Gen X, remember 8 is Enough, right? They're a family, and they got married, and they had a little kid, and the little kid was Nicholas, and all the other kids around Nicholas were way older than Nicholas. Yeah, 8 is Enough, literally, and I'm Nicholas. That was my family situation. When I was born, I had a brother in the Marine Corps that was in Vietnam when I was born. He was old enough to be my father without raising eyebrows. So I have this really weird age range in my family. So my brother-in-law, Drake Conklin, he was enlisted, explosive ordnance disposal, 5 tours Vietnam, EOD, 5 tours Vietnam. He had thrill issues. He was part of Secret Service detail for presidents as the EOD expert. He went back to Vietnam to B-52 crash sites to recover airmen from crash sites when Vietnam started opening up the doors on helping us find MIAs in Vietnam. He was exposed to a shit ton of Agent Orange. He got cancer. He fought for years. And I totally got a little emotional just thinking about him. And I totally forgot. Oh, I remember where I was going with this. And I had a conversation with him when I was a late teen, ramping up to go into the Air Force, which didn't happen for me. I explained that earlier. And he was talking to me about Afghanistan and like how the situation was there. And one of the questions I was asking is like, well, I don't understand if so many Russian soldiers are dying, how come nobody's questioning? Well, I don't understand. They're like, well, they suppress it. They don't talk about it. But they're going to know at some point, right? And he looked at me and he said, I'll never forget this. They'll know when Johnny doesn't come marching home, and the mothers will let them know. And that's why they've suppressed everything in Russia, because they don't want the mothers talking about it. And that's why. The numbers are appalling. And again, for the Russian forces, there is an MIA number on top of that, KIAWA number, and we don't even know what it is. And it's not a small number. We're not talking dozens. That number's got to be in the hundreds because we see the abandoned vehicles everywhere. Anyway, they're humans. The common foot soldier that's just doing their thing, not the monsters that are shooting reporters and families in cars, but for the common foot, they're just common foot soldiers. They don't want to be there. Every person I've ever talked to that's been in combat generally never wants to go combat again. And the people I've ever talked to, whether through interviews or friendships or connections, who were in combat and want to go back to it, they're missing some parts. And I'm not saying that out of disrespect. There's Something's not right. Most people who have been in the crap, in the shit, they don't ever want to talk about it. My father was a World War II vet, had me very late in life. My father was among the first troops into Buchenwald. He followed Patton's Third Army. He was in Patton's Third Army. If you saw Band of Brothers, and through that whole movie, when they kind of got relieved, Patton's Third Army was showing up. Yeah, that's kind of where my dad was in this. Not that my dad's in that movie or stories ever told. I'm just saying, if you ever watch Band of Brothers, 100 right, you're in the shit, and they're in the shit, and they're in the shit, and then Patton shows up, and of course you're like, you know, looks like it was a hell of a fight here, guy. Yeah, that was my dad. But he was among some of the first troops into Buchenwald, and he never talked about it. My father got rip-roaring drunk when I was 13 years old, and he told me all of his war stories in that night once when he was rip-roaring drunk. I remember it vividly, and I wish I had cassette recorded it when he did it. And he never talked about it again. And even when he would connect with his World War II buddies, there was the stuff that they would reminisce about was, they would reminisce about Europe and stuff, but they would not reminisce about hey, you remember that time we were in this firefight? Never. Never. I'm cleaning my bong right now. Okay. Oh my God, 45 comments. Yes, I am aware of the bounty. That guy is in the United States. I know a lot of people are like, it's Russian oligarch. He's in the United States. That guy lives in the United States. So it's not as a big noise as you think it is. And $1 million for Putin. Pfft. No, and I want to talk about that too. I just saw your thing, and again, there's so many questions coming through, and if I'm missing your question, I am so sorry. I want to talk about this. This is important to talk about. I saw this thing about NATO. Thank you, Kanich. Thank you. Brian, thank you for that too. Yeah, I want to talk about this issue on NATO involvement. Yesterday, I made a TikTok. I was clearly fired up. I will probably even go as far to say I lost some objectivity in that moment about the need for a no-fly zone. And I did that's why I stated, I fully comprehend what I'm saying. The first missile, the first bullet, spiral. And it's already spiraling as it is. So, and that's the problem. A lot of people, survey just came out today. 74% of Americans want to see a no-fly zone over Ukraine. 74%. It's on the ticker if you're on the other channels. 74%. The problem with the no-fly zone is, as soon as you have to use the no-fly zone, we're at next level. Well, that's okay, because and that's true. It's very clear. Putin cannot win a land war in Europe. It's not even close. Of what we're seeing in Ukraine, it truly appears that the UK military on its own could stand up. I'm not talking about the big stuff. Just on their own, they probably could stand up toe to toe with the Russian military. This is probably what Ukraine is. Forget the United States. Europe could handle this without us. That's something that's been exposed. But the problem is, Putin is, I'm picking my words carefully here. Putin is not making rational choices, right? Putin, everything is going to plan. This is what Putin is saying. Look, I don't care how far up his rear end is. You cannot look at the map of Ukraine and go, this is all going to plan. This is all to plan. Our troops out of food, out of fuel, we don't have air dominance 10 days in. This convoy is now becoming just kind of a shooting gallery for Ukrainian drones and Ukrainian Su-25s. We control exactly, meaning the Russians, one city and barely at that. And the cities that we don't control, nobody's going to want anyway by the time we get them, because they're just going to be piles of rubble. Oh, and I'll go back to what I said earlier. Where are the videos from Donbass? Where are the videos from Donetsk? Where are the videos from Luhansk showing the people there embracing their liberators and rescuers from the terrible Ukrainians who are just executing us in the streets? They're not even on Russian state media. Where are they? They don't exist because this wasn't what it was about. So, and the problem is there's no way to enforce a no-fly zone. And I've realized that now. And I've had a couple people come talk to me like, dude, you're off base. And let me explain why. Okay. And one of the things I also, so then like, then what do you do? What could you do? And there were some suggestions that were put on the table that I think are interesting suggestions. For example, one suggestion I was like, that's a good suggestion. Station UN peacekeepers at the remaining unoccupied nuclear power stations. There's 2 more that aren't. And just because what happened yesterday is unprecedented in warfare. Absolutely. Somebody had asked me in one of the comments on the TikTok we did, has this happened before? And I was like, I don't know. Like, I know that plants under construction have been hit, but I'm not aware of military action being taken out on an actually live and running plant. And the answer to that is no, it has never happened in warfare. And right now, that's the thing. The people are like, well, wait a minute, because it could have gone really bad yesterday. It was 5 minutes of terror, 5 hours of terror yesterday. It could have gone really bad. Yes, there were some things that were said that just aren't true. No, the plant wouldn't go like Chernobyl did. Totally different design. Probably even in their worst nightmares wouldn't be 10 times worse as Chernobyl. There was some hyperbole that was getting thrown around, but it would be terrible. Meltdowns are terrible. So, and clearly they were under orders. And they kind of sent their wild-eyed boys to go do it, right? Because it was Russian and Chechens. And that's part of the reason why they're like, okay. So right now we have Chechen military trying to run the largest nuke plant in all of Europe. And the IAEA is not feeling warm and fuzzy about this. And I don't think anybody else should be feeling warm and fuzzy about this. And here's the question too. Now that they control the running plants at Chernobyl and the ones at Zaporizhzhia, what happens if they really start losing? Will they go as far as to sabotage those plants? It has to be considered. So what can we do? Well, we can certainly arm them to the teeth. And we're doing that. And Javelin, and we'll talk about air in particular, because that's what a no-fly zone is going to do. The man-pads have been super effective, including on the Su-25s. This is another good indicator of how trash the Russian military is, right? Stinger missiles was a game changer in Afghanistan when the Mujahideen was fighting against Russia. And by the way, we paid and trade Osama bin Laden to Mujahideen. Yeah, guess what? He's our creation. The United States, we own that. If you look at the history, we trade him. He gave the United States to trade. He'll trade his fighters. We armed him, gave him money. Yeah, he was our boy once upon a time. The United States does such a good job of putting their bets on people. We're going to bet on Saddam Hussein. We're going to bet on Osama bin Laden. We're going to bet on Baby Doc Duvalier. We're going to bet on Fidel Castro. Oh, what a track record. Red flag. When the United States embraces somebody that might have dictatorial tendencies, red flag. Because we're awful at picking these people. We owed all this stuff. My point is this. The Stinger missiles were a game changer. It literally is a big part of what led to the failure of the Russian military in Afghanistan. The other part of it is they should have never got involved in Afghanistan in the first place, because Afghanistan is where militaries go to die, metaphorically speaking and literally speaking. If you look at the history going back a couple of thousand years, that is a black hole for military engagements. You don't, it's the what was it's the joke from The Princess Bride, right? You never trust a Sicilian. You don't fight a land war. You don't fight a land war in Asia. There's a lot of truth to those. Not the first one, the second part, land war, the Asian part. They had 99, 2009, 2019. They had 32 years to figure out Stinger missiles. Honestly, when I heard we're sending Stinger missiles, I'm like, what in the Kentucky Fried Chicken favor is this? These are useless. They have to be useless. We were using these in Afghanistan. And I get, don't roast me military people. I get, they're improved. Yes, the Stinger missile today is nothing like the Stinger, but it's still the Stinger missile, right? At the foundationally Stinger missile. And apparently the Russian military has done diddly squat, literally nothing to go, if we ever got in a land war with NATO forces, we really need to figure out this Stinger missile thing, because the Stinger missiles handed our asses to us in Afghanistan. And apparently the Russian military just said punt. Because they lost 2 Su-25s yesterday. They lost one the day before. They've lost close to 10 of them now. I know, Belarus was all excited. Hey, guess what? Russian Air Force is set up an air base right at our border with glorious Su-25s to stick it to. Oh, that could have been a disaster. Didn't land on the computer in here. To stick it to the Ukrainians. And those planes are getting shot down on the daily. I seriously wouldn't want to be in that air unit. Think about the morale. Think about the morale of that combat squadron. You're going up every day. 1, 2 of your buddies are not coming back, and you think what are you being told? What's the propaganda you're being fed? Special operation, easy job, real good. We got this. They're awful, evil people. You're helping liberate, and you're getting your butts handed to you by what you're being told was a second-rate military and a special operation. Think about the morale of those pilots. It's got to be beyond in the toilet. They blew up Don Johnson's Ferrari with a Stinger missile. I didn't say Russia's surrendering. Any victory at this point they get is an empty victory. Ukraine could surrender tomorrow. What Russia is exposed to the world is they have a weak military. But they won. They won by throwing a bunch of cannon fodder kids, which is horrific. I already talked about casualty numbers earlier. And when you extrapolate the numbers, how bad it is. Their casualty numbers are worse on a percentage basis than the first day of the D-Day invasion. Take all the time you want to unpack that stat. It's a cold, hard fact. Their casualty numbers were worse than the first day in D-Day invasion. You take that to the bank. Their economy is destroyed. They've put up the Iron Curtain. And I get it. The Russian people have been fed all this propaganda, the same propaganda that was being fed back in the 60s and 70s into the 80s, that this is all NATO's fault, that we are the aggressor, that we are out to destroy. This is what they're being told, that they are the underdogs, and that they will persevere against this great Western alliance that is out to isolate, cripple, and destroy them. This is what they're telling their people, and their people believe it. Most of them. A majority. And that's why. I don't know if it ever came to that. I don't know if you ever get people like that, people like him. People like him. It just doesn't happen. People hoping for that. Justice, The Hague. People like him, never happens. Those are the people that get away with it. The people that end up in the Hague, is Willie the mailroom boy in Sector 3G. That's who ends up there. People like someone down the line. He's made sure of that, and he's not even worried about it. The questions are going by so fast. I'm really trying to. No, interesting. China and Russia. China is definitely not showing the buddy that uh, China's shut off. Right, China controls state banks. Blah blah blah. They're cutting off financing. They're cutting off banks. They are cutting off buying raw materials from Russia. They are not the buddies. You really got to understand when China abstained on that vote, has abstained on all of the UN votes. Well, no, that's big, right? Because abstained is like, hey, China, we're buddies, right? Tell them we're right. Tell them I'm doing the right thing. Yeah, about that. You really should have talked to me first. I'm really not. We have to have a private conversation before I go to bat for you, okay? So, just can we talk about this later? It's a big deal. Iran too. Iran, like when they had the UN vote to condemn, right? To condemn, and Nicaragua, Iran, Uganda, and Cuba were all like, yeah, we don't know you. We're going to abstain. That's a big political message. Look, when you're invading a country and your friends are Syria, Belarus, North Korea, and Eritrea, and those are your four buddies, that's all you got. You've stepped in a big stinking pile of you know what. I'm really trying to keep up with your questions. Yeah, Russia and China aren't really tight, and they never really have. They have. I think the best way to describe China and Russia's relationship are frenemies. If you're in the business world, corporate world, you know this term, frenemies. They're friends because, we do this, but we don't do this really well, and they do it really well, but they do this other stuff, and we know they want to get in our sandbox, but we got to be friends because they help fill this gap, and that's kind of it. Russia and China are total frenemies. China clearly has their own economic goals. Russia's in the way of that. I do think that Russia's watching I do think China's watching what's going on in Ukraine because they've certainly made their intentions about Taiwan very clear, and they're taking copious notes on what not to do because Russia's running a textbook case right now on what not to do if you're going to invade a country. Yes, Karadik did end up at The Hague, but he's a smaller fish than Pooty Poot. Budapest security measure, why is it being ignored? Because we'd all be crispy critters. This is a great question too, and here's opinion, but this is a concern of mine. Think about this. You're a smaller country, and you're watching what's going on right now in Ukraine and the world's response. And you look at North Korea, which is a nuclear-armed country, and look how North Korea gets treated. So if you're a country like Iran, which may or may not want weapons, they continue to deny that they have. Yes, I know they've enriched to 60%. They have 32 kilograms. I read the headlines. The report's confidential. I've read the headlines. It's still not enough to make a warhead, and they still don't have all of the mojo to make it happen, right? And they got all this oil. The oil they have is crap. We did a TikTok about that. Their oil's crap. Iran, believe it or not, actually does have a legitimate issue with what are we going to do for power. And I don't mean like power. I mean just like turning on the lights power. They actually have a legitimate issue if you look at the natural resources that are available to them. And Why do you think why do you think Iran abstained, right? What was the signal here? Instead of voting for, because they're buddies, right? Iran, what have we been told? What have we been told since the Shah of Iran, the failed rescue attempt, Iran-Iraq war, right? Buddies. Russia, Iran, hand in hand, like a glove. Buddies. Cold War theory, one of the concerns, which is why Turkey was like, yeah, we'll let you into NATO, sure. And Turkey has all this big military, is one of the concerns in the Cold War is that Russia would move to take over Iran for their oil assets. That wouldn't give them a whole lot of value right now. Their oil's super heavy and super sour. Oil comes in all different flavors when you suck it out of the ground. And it's very, very hard to process. And there aren't a lot of refineries on the planet that can handle crude oil from Iran. And so it's hard for them to sell it. I did a TikTok explaining all this. You can go on our profile, watch that TikTok. It's about the pending potential deal in there. But if you're watching what's happening in Ukraine, and this is why I'm getting to the Budapest Accord, and you watch what happened in North Korea, put yourself in the shoes of a leader of a smaller country. Because I'll tell you, if I was a leader of a smaller country and I was thinking, I want the boom, and I'm seeing what happened with the Budapest Accord, and I look at how North Korea is treated, I'm doing everything I can to bring on the boom. And I am not going to let anybody get in my way to do it. And I'm just flat out going to tell the world, well, look how North Korea is treated, and look what you guys are doing with Ukraine. So what do I see here? Because remember, Pakistan also is armed. India is armed, right? Because they were just ready to go to war with each other, and so they got real serious, and they have their arsenals. So who messes with Pakistan? Nobody, because Pakistan could wreck somebody's day. And that's it. So my concern on the Budapest Accord being ignored is that this just supports proliferation for these weapons. And it was a BS decision in the first place. And think about this too. Let's go to the United States. Let's say the people in this country that have been fed Russian disinformation and misinformation and boldly proclaim on platforms like Facebook and Twitch and TikTok how they want their civil war. They can't wait for it. And let's say they get it. And let's say the country breaks apart. And Washington State becomes part of some other, because we're liberal and awful here, and we become some part of some other whatever country land. Washington State would be in the exact same position as Ukraine if this were to happen. What do you mean? If Washington was its own country, the state, it would be the third most powerful nuclear power on the planet. That's how much boom is stored in Washington State. And if that were ever to happen, if they were to happen and it's all kind of said and done and this side's all and that was all, if you give up your weapons, yeah, that's my view based on what I've seen what the world did. Yeah, no, whatever our new government is, no, we're not giving those up, ever giving those up. No. Because no. So I just think I think it was a BS deal to begin with, and I think it's just encouraged proliferation. So I know, long ass answer. We talked about Kaliningrad. We opened talking about Kaliningrad. There's some weirdness going on tonight or this morning. Well, actually, let me pull it up. Let's go update the map. I know I can't show you the map on TikTok. I can show the map, I think, on the other channels. No, shoot, I need to set it up. Let's see if that, let's do a refresh. And let's see if that Q4 Global Hawk is still up. Nah, I don't want you to know my location. And yeah, just filter out. I just want to see military flights. Thank you. Ooh, probably a lot of people looking at the map. I am looking at globe.adsb exchange, by the way. If you're like, what magical website is he looking at? I just want to see military flights, please. Thank you. Uh, there was a global hawk that was spending a lot of time looking at Kaliningrad earlier, um, and it still is. Here, TikTok gets to see it. I'll go ahead and move the phone off the mount. Sorry about all that there. Let's see here. Oh, shoot. Oh, gosh darn it. It's not going to plan. Wow, it's not going to plan at all. All right, I am failing showing my screen 101 here. I'm sorry. There is a Global Hawk drone that has been eyeballing Kaliningrad for hours. We opened up our live with like, that's kind of interesting. Don't exactly know what's going on there. Let's see what else we got here. I'm looking at other things. Let's see, C-32 cargo, LJ2, C-17, Romanian military cargo plane, and we've seen some of that going around. Croatian cargo plane, that's interesting a little bit. Oh, German. Boy, there's a lot of cargo planes. Is there anything else here that's kind of big that just kind of makes us go, ooh, what's this? Another C-17. There was a couple of Russian aircraft we were seeing up in the air. That Global Hawk though is watching. The other thing I want to see is if the E4B, there was an E4B Doomsday plane, and yes, Truce 18. Truce 18 is still doing its thing. That's the E4B. That one's over Texas, so-called Doomsday plane. And this P8 Orion, P8 Poseidon submarine warfare airplane has been going up and down the Gulf Coast, from Texas to the Florida Panhandle, back and forth this whole time that we've been doing live. That's a C-17. That's probably a KC-135. Oh, a KC-46A Pegasus. Welcome to the party, little buddy. Another C-17. What is interesting to me, I am not seeing any AWACS, command and control support aircraft in the air, and there's not been for hours. And there's been a ton of AWACS that's been up. No B-52s on station. There were B-52s on the station yesterday. Ukraine time, they were on state. What I mean by station, they're circling in kind of a ready position. Over Hungary, there were at point two of them. A little bit of posturing. Just again, the analogy I used. I talked about this very at the beginning of the stream. The analogy that I kind of used is: you ever get a dog? You ever go like walk up to the dog and like the dog's not quite sure about you, and the dog's kind of like, but the tail's wagging at the same time, and the body language is kind of like, I want to be your bud, but I'm not sure. That's what I mean by posturing. So. Flight Radar 24 does not show as many military flights. The best one, this is the tool we use for research. It is globe.adsb Alpha Delta Bravo Sierra exchange.com. I'll do that one more time. Globe mods admins drop not on TikTok, because TikTok's weird when you put URLs. So don't drop it on TikTok. Mods admins on the regular chat, drop it in there. It is globe.adsb exchange, Alpha Delta Sierra Bravo. And by the way, I know like I talk like a lot of military voice and lingo and stuff. No, I wanted to go in the military, and I didn't wash out. Just I got to MEPS and they're like, sorry, you've got medical issues that we found in MEPS, and that was the end of my career. So one more time on that website. It's globe dot, so globe like the globe dot Alpha Delta Sierra Bravo ADSB exchange.com. And you can do a filter. I just want to see military flights, which is really cool. I'm very worried about Moldova. I'm very worried about Moldova, right? Because we had Lukashenko in Belarus say the quiet part out loud, and he showed the map going, hey, we're going to Transnistria, everybody. We saw, I'm not going to talk. There's some unconfirmed stuff that we saw tonight. I haven't had a chance to dig into it further before the live. That points to maybe something going on. Not specific to Transnistria, but I am very, very concerned about Transnistria, not necessarily all the way into Moldova, but of course, what's the strategy they did in Ukraine? Well, it's Donbass, Crimea, then it's Donbass, now it's the whole freaking country, then it's Transnistria, then it would be Moldova, and Moldova wouldn't last 24 hours. Like, well, I don't know. Russian military is like F troop apparently. Very old reference. Well, Kaliningrad is Russia, so they can park anything they want in there. If one NATO boot steps on the ground in Kaliningrad, bad things happen. It is a little interesting that there is a global hawk that has been watching Kaliningrad for hours and hours and hours and hours, and that there is a E4B doomsday plane. There again, I opened it with, it's not unusual for them to be up. This is the first time that I've looked on I've looked on the radar apps and seen an E4B in the air. There was an EB6, which is a TACAMO plane. TACAMO plane's not on flight radar. That doesn't mean the TACAMO plane isn't. It could be out over the ocean for all we know, right? And then they turn their squawk off. Don't know. The other thing is that E4B, it's squawking because they want people to know it's there. So it's posturing. If stuff was going down, we wouldn't know the E4B was there. I guess the best way to put it. The Global Hawk, though, it is a little kind of like, why are we looking at Kaliningrad so hard? I just feel like something's going on there. Because why do we have our eyeball on there so hard? Very true. Wagging tail does not mean friendly dog. Very, very true. Thanks for letting the Russians know what? They don't have internet. Oh, wait a minute. They don't have a lot of internet access now. Ha ha! Funny joke. What is my regular check? Buick. # Buick. Turn off guest to turn on Q&A. You know, I went through this before. We like totally went through this before, and it was like there was something, and we couldn't do it. I went through this before, and there's something weird with something configured. So, like right now, what I'm seeing is I have Q&A turned on, right? It literally says, do I want to turn off Q&A? So like here, I'm turning off Q&A, and there, my Q&A is turned off, and now I'm going to go Q&A, and I'm going to turn it back on. Yes, turn it on. So now, in theory, people should be able to ask me questions in Q&A, but it doesn't work. There's something, we went through this before in another live. There's something weird with the TikTok. I'm trying. If anybody can give me a suggestion on why Q&A is not working, then please. It's on now. It's on now. Okay, see, this is weird. Oh, look at this. I'm getting quite, seriously, it was on this whole time. I see it. It's working. Is it true that Russian tanks fired upon themselves? I heard about this. I don't know. We haven't had a chance. Fog of war happens all the time. I wouldn't take points off of any military that starts firing at each other. Happens all the time. Happens more times than you think. And it's happened in the U.S. military. More times than you think, including in the modern military. It's very easy for that to happen there. Ukrainian equipment, Russian equipment are, in some cases, the same. And if you think of something like tanks, their markings are very similar. You probably see these things where you see the soldiers that have orange bands or yellow bands tied around their arms. This is another indication of how trash the Russian military is, right? They're using a colored piece of cloth to go, look, I have an orange one on. Don't like it's like capture the flag when you were kids. Let's see, more questions? I only have 3 questions. Oh, they have. Oh, they've been firing on the Russian convoy. What is that plane over the Texas? That's the E-4B. It's based on the 747. It looks like it has the 747, the big jumbo jet, got like the hump on it, right? The second tier. This one has even another little funky hump on top of that hump. It's called the Doomsday plane. This would be the plane that would take over all military operations if things ever went to where we don't want things to go. U.S. Air Force has 4 of them. It is not unusual for an E-4B to be in the air. 9/11, E-4B, 9/11, I don't know if it was E-4B. I don't know if we had E-4B then, but yeah, we did have E-4Bs then, was up in the air. So, and once upon a time during the Cold War, they weren't E-4Bs then. They were these doomsday planes, and it was not. They were up 24 hours a day. There was always one in the air, and they were called looking glass planes. And that project ended, and that project ended in the 90s because hey, the Cold War's over. 9/11 happened. I believe we kind of ended everything in the Cold War. We ended Ready 5. So Ready 5 was you have squadrons of fighters at select locations. They are armed. They're ready to take off in 5 minutes. Cold War's over. We ended Ready 5. This is why some of the stories of 9/11, like when fighter planes went up to intercept, they were completely unarmed. They were unarmed because we didn't have Ready 5 anymore, right? And so there were F-16 pilots who knew what they were signing up for. They knew that they could potentially be ordered to fly their plane into a plane because that's the only option they had, and they knew it. So anyway, um, it's not unusual for an E-4B to be up, but just in light of things, it's kind of like you're looking for these planes. Last week, when things got very tense and there was all this stuff, and we were like, we are not at DEF CON 2, people. Like, we were just like saying this. There's this website. It's like, it's not public information. The only reason the US government's going to tell you we are or aren't is because they want you to know, because they want the world to know. We're not, because you would see different things going on. The only thing that I saw, there were 3 EB6s up, but even 3 isn't like, oh, wow. There's 1 or 2 up at kind of any given moment. I'm not seeing a single EB6 up over the United States, which makes me feel actually a little bit better that there's a E-4B that's up, or E6. I was saying EB6, E6B. Sorry. Could the GH be in response to? I don't know. No, hasn't. Actually, I talked about that earlier in the stream. Take all that with a grain of salt about the overflow in the morgues and overwhelmed hospitals. We don't know. Belarus would never share it. And we know that because, Lukashenko was the last dictator of Europe. Now there's 2 of them. And the bigger dictator, meaning the shorter guy, isn't going to want to share the stage with anyone, and Lukashenko will just eventually probably get a polonium cocktail at some point, and the guy's just too to realize it. They already have. They already admitted it. Belarus has already said we're in. Lukashenko got on TV, and this TV, we have TikTok on it. He's up on TV. We fired the missiles. The missiles were here. We fired them. We fired them in there. We destroyed the targets. We did it. Yay us! And the people sitting there listening to this are just like, I cannot believe he's doing this on national TV. We're all screwed. We're all screwed. So they're already in. Hi, it's working. I see it. It's working. This is great. Any more questions? This is so weird. Do I have to go in and out? More questions? Oh, now there's a ton of questions. Why have they stationed more B-52s there? Posturing. That's why. It's posturing. Probably recommendations from military commanders. They're extremely versatile aircraft, right? They multi-role air-launched cruise missiles. Just plain old school GBU-82 500-pound bombs. They're super versatile platform. And yes, they could bring the boom, and they would do that. They wouldn't fly in; they would do it from ALCMs. No, no idea. This is why this kind of Poseidon, this P8 Poseidon, is interesting off the Gulf Coast. No, there hasn't been any updates on that. We do know that an Estonian cargo ship that's been reported on Reuters and a few other news sources. Estonian cargo ship blew up and sank. I believe that's 2 days ago. Now we were going to follow up on it, but then the whole nuclear reactor thing happened, and then Russia essentially raising the Iron Curtain, and this has become a smaller story. So that story's been confirmed on the Estonia. It is believed that it struck a mine. There was a Bangladesh cargo ship that was hit by a missile, and that ship also sunk. There were initial reports on the Estonia cargo ship. By the way, neither of these ships, the Bangladesh, they're civilian, they're not military. Um, there are no deaths from those. There were initially the reports in the Estonian, 2 recovered, 4 missing. The last updates that I saw from the company that owns the ship, all 6 recovered, with the 4 that were missing pulled out of the water after being there for a few hours. No, it's just no, it's not a bad sign. It's just, why Texas? I don't know. They want to fly over Texas. I don't know. Not my lane. OSC, not my lane. Don't know. Right now, I don't think Sweden and Finland are at risk. I wouldn't bet money against Finland not joining NATO. I based on the representative that visited the White House specifically to talk about joining NATO, and just as another kind of put in the eye at Putin, and ironically, in a way of kind of demonstrate it's not working, buddy. It's getting the direct opposite effect. I would not be surprised to see Finland joining into NATO, and Finland and Russia have a long history. So other reactors are fine. I know I saw the report. I know I follow Aaron Parnes. You should follow him too. He has great stuff. I did see his thing about troops are advancing. 20 miles. I saw that. We did some digging. Troops are moving that way, but we didn't see anything in open source intelligence or from the resources that we're pulling from that got us to go. Yeah, and again, I am not roasting Aaron. Matt, I said I follow him. I think he's doing amazing work. Family in Ukraine. He's doing a great job, and I can't stress it enough. You're asking me to answer the question from my view. I'm telling you from a research standpoint, we can't find anything that can make us strongly say, because we would rather be right than first, that can strongly say, yes, that makes sense. Yeah, basically. Well, they're doing it Can Putin Rouge Fallujah style now. That he's doing it right now with the civvies there. So, well, again, I talked about this earlier. The Pentagon admitted yesterday the United States is feeding direct military intelligence in a material and supportive way to the Ukrainian military. Yesterday, Ukrainian Air Force hit that convoy, hit it hard, and oh, what a surprise! There was two AWACS. There were 2 AWACS up, but there was the one that, if you want my opinion, that was providing support. There was one close to the border of Moldova. I'm guessing that was the AWACS aircraft that was providing intelligence and command and control. I talked about this earlier. We've already said that we're providing military intelligence, and we've done that in a number of conflicts. We're already kind of doing the World War II Lend-Lease thing with the man pads and the javelins. and other equipment that's going in there. By the way, on the subject of that, like I know there was this, I know there's been like all of this. We should just send them 3 squadrons of A-10s. This would solve everything, and we actually have like the reserve A-10s. We could just give them to them tomorrow. You can't go from an Su-25 and then fly an A-10. Here you go. Here's the new. It's not like getting a new car. It doesn't work that way. They don't have parts. They don't have maintenance. They don't have the 37 millimeter spent plutonium rounds. They don't have the weapons that connect to the hard points. It doesn't integrate into their command and control systems. All of the displays and interfaces are in English. Tons of issues. So no, you can't, because the value actually isn't in the aircraft. The value is in the ass in the seat. And the second we provide a U.S. ass in the seat, we're now into a much worse situation. Wow. This is so weird. The question thing is not like working very well. Like seriously, the question thing is not working very well for me. Or is that it? Or is that all the questions I have? Did I answer everybody's questions? Kind of looks like it. Or did questions break again? All right, let me pop over to the other side. Tanks and detractors. Yeah, though a lot of, not all of these tanks and tractors videos are legit, but some of them are, and I find them absolutely hysterical. All right, so let me see. This is what I mean. I have this issue. Like it works, and then and it's not me. So I'm going to turn it off, and I'm going to turn it back on. All right, turned it back on. Does Q&A work now? I just turned it off and on. We've had this problem before. Okay, now it's working again. It's a TikTok thing. It's not us. We've had this problem before. All right, y'all are saying it's working. No, he's not spring cleaning. Again, that doesn't make any sense. You don't send the scrubbed equipment in invasion. You send your best equipment and get it over with. Then you put the scrub equipment in to establish your protectorate. You don't put the crappy equipment in. Name one military conflict at this scale where somebody commits 20% of their total military, and what they went in with was the worst pieces of it, and where they're the invader, where they're the invader, and they purposely decided to put their worst pieces of equipment in. It's it makes zero sense. What do I think about Anonymous? Anonymous is complicated. I mean, certainly there's some things that Anonymous has done that's just been like, that's amazing. Um, like asking me what I think about like Anonymous is like asking me what I think about Antifa. I know even saying that is loaded. Now that I've said it, there's probably going to be like 500 more people are going to come in here because TikTok wants to amplify it and create chaos. I toss out not to enrage. There's no Antifa membership card. You don't send your annual dues to Club Antifa, and the same thing goes like for Anonymous, right? So they're a blob. They're just a blob. So because he's an idiot. Why did Belarus show the endgame map? Because he's a dictatorial idiot. He's a buffoon. He's used to just being able to bluster and do whatever he wants and have everybody stand up and be their sycophants and go, "Oh, great dictator, yay!" And that's why he did it. I can't imagine that there was a happy phone call from the Kremlin after that gaffe. Because that map, there's people way smarter than me that have looked at that map. There's articles, there's write-ups, there's drawings and arrows and circles and a paragraph on the back explaining the circles and arrows. And it's like it was just a colossal F up. And like they don't even have a projector. He's up there like it's 1975 with like, and the stick and whacking it up on there. Like the whole thing was just bizarre. I don't know. Ukraine oil? I don't think so. I've seen the stuff on the gas reserves. I don't know. It's a good question, and it's something I wanted to dig into. but we're small. We can't dig into everything. It is an interesting angle. Already answered. I think I've already answered everyone else's questions, and I have a feeling that the Q&A died again. Is what my guess. I'm going to turn it off. I don't know. You know, that's a good question about Moldova and Transnistria. Now that oops, we said the quiet part out loud. Does that kind of take it off the table? I don't know. Look, if I ruled Moldova, I would just be like, and I know that they have kind of like this loose partnership with NATO, but I would be like, I really need some hardcore assurances that we're not going to get the Ukrainian treatment here, folks. So, what can we do? What can we do here? What can we do? What can we do? Okay, can we start landing just some planes here? Even we're just refueling them. We're just going to provide a little refuel station here or something. Maybe put a couple of Marines to just kind of watch the gas tank for the refueling thing. Can we just maybe do that? Just a little tiny token thing that says, like, you don't want to go here. Can we do that? The whole Transnistria thing is weird too, because like nobody recognizes them. Not even Russia recognized. Like they're just kind of allowed to exist. And Russia does have 1,500 peacekeepers there. But the whole Transnistria thing is weird. They're just like, we just don't want to be part of Moldova. We don't want to be part of Ukraine. We just want to be Transnistria. It's really weird. Well, again, I think their hands are tied on doing a no-fly zone. One thing that I had thought about, I talked about my thoughts in the announced ceasefire earlier. I think it's BS. Real quick, Russia did the same thing in Syria. And then when they were done closing those corridors, they said, okay, nobody who left, you're all enemy combatants, because clearly you had a chance to leave. And now we could just carpet bomb everybody under the Geneva Convention because we just declared you enemy combatants because you didn't leave when you got the chance. So I think this deal is BS because they already did this. They played this exact same, hey, we'll do the humanitarian corridor game before. They did in Syria, they did in Georgia, they did in Chechnya, and it was awful for the people that didn't leave. Yeah, I did because it was working and not working. I don't know. I have no idea how long Ukraine survived it. They've already survived it longer than anybody thought. That's for sure. Even if I saw this thing, the Russian plans 15 days, blah blah blah. It's very clear Russia just thought they were going to throw flowers at their feet. Look, this isn't just a Russian thing. We did this in Iraq, right? What did Rumsfeld say? This will be done in 6 weeks. Yeah, he was technically right. It was done in 6 weeks, and then we made one of the most colossal blunders in military history. Hey, how you doing, Iraqi military? Guess what? You're all fired, but you get to go home with your guns. We'll let you keep your guns as a parting gift for participating in the Iraqi military because we got this. Go back to World War II. We didn't do this in Germany. We didn't do this in Japan, right? And there was outrage. Why are we using the German police and the German Gestapo and German troops to provide? Because it's like we have to give them something to do. Because if we don't give them something to do while we figure out who's really bad and sort of bad and wasn't bad, then they're just going to go and start raising hell and doing bad stuff. And look how that worked out. It worked out right. It's what we should have done in Iraq. I would say that I don't know. America, I don't know. I would say probably no. Should we call their bluff? Right now, I would say no. No, I didn't say that. I didn't say USAF totally operates E4Bs. Navy does E6. Navy runs the E6, the TACAMO planes. There was I don't know. I was like surprised, like when I was like looking up the specs in the E6B because this hasn't been my focus for a while. And I was trying to look up specs for the E6B, and I went to the Air Force, the airforce.mil website, the official Air Force. I think it's af.mil. And I'm like, where the hell's the E6B? And then I I'm not reading the Wikipedia article. I want the military article. And I'm like, Navy? The attackable planes are with Navy? When did that happen? One day I'll rat hole and read on that. Be an interesting read. What's going to be the outcome? When do I think gas prices will go down? Oh, Dad was 154th. What about a draft? No, we're not doing conscription. When do you think gas prices will go down? And what's going to be the outcome? I think I'm going to make these two the last questions because I see it's pushing midnight. So, what do I think the outcome is going to be? I don't know. That's the easy out. What's possible? Putin needs an out. He needs an out where he's going to win, and he can't win. And I know people, well, he'll take over a pile of rubble. That wasn't his intent on the outset. And he'll be economically destroyed, cut off from the rest of the world for everything. And even if it stops at Ukraine, he has fully ignited a full-on late 1950s, 1960s Cold War. There will be massive pileup of weapons in Europe again, and they will have no ability. Russia will have no monetary ability in a global world between, right? Because there's no country this isn't 1940. So you just can't well, we're going to dig iron out of the ground. We're just going to build tanks as fast as we can. Damn it. It's a different world, right? They need microchips. Well, where are the microchip fabs? Well, most of those microchip fabs are in Taiwan and they're in South Korea. Do you think South Korea is going to be giving them microchips? Yeah, here, how you doing? We're Russia. How are you going to pay us? Oh, we'll send you payment in SWIFT. Oh, wait a minute, you can't do that. So how do you build military weapons? So this is a huge problem. It costs $10 billion roughly to build a forge. When I say forge, making chips, they call those forges. And then it takes about 3 years to get it online. And you actually could spend the $10 billion, spend 2 to 3 years calibrating everything to get the chips, and the yields could be so low that you have to start all over again. It's really hard to build microchips. So, yeah, he could win, but he's not going to win. He's not going to restore things to the former glory. And there is no amount of conventional warfare pressure that he can put on. All he has left is his nuke deterrent. So that's option one. Option two, things. Okay, so there's mutually assured destruction. What's mutually assured destruction? So by the mid-1960s, in the 50s, which is when we had Tooter the Turtle and the song Duck and Cover, and I wasn't alive for this, but you can go on YouTube and just watch these ridiculous propaganda, civil defense propaganda videos that the U.S. government put out in the 1950s. This is Mary and John. Mary and John are just going about their ordinary day. But the day's not going to be all that ordinary because there's the bomb. But it's okay because Mary's going to go down, and Mary's down in her dress and she's setting up their survival bunker and making sure it's there. And you can read Civil Defense Guide, but seriously, these videos are on YouTube and they're going to look like parodies now. Mystery Science Theater 3000, if you're ever an MST3K fan, they've actually done their MSTK because they did shorts. They've done some MSTK3 treatment to some of those videos. They realized in the 1960s that this was just complete BS. There's no such thing as a survivable nuclear war. So the whole civil defense program kind of evaporated, and this whole idea of we're going to store food and water and literally have chemical toilets and a bucket and stuff so that everybody can hide, and we'll go back. And yes, it's true. The IRS has a plan to start collecting taxes 30 days after. Can't make this stuff up because it's so ludicrous. So the thing of mutual assured destruction is you wipe us out, we wipe you out, everybody wiped out, game over. And the beauty of mutually assured destruction is that mutually assured destruction has assured that we've never used these weapons. There's a couple of things that have happened. One, it isn't just like survivors of Hiroshima and Nagasaki. It's the atomic vets. It's the people that develop these weapons, the people that have seen an actual airburst test, generals who were old enough or grew up, really were adults in that Cold War era and knew the gravity of these decisions. A lot of these people now are worm food, or retired, and they don't have a voice at the table anymore. And so it's been 75-ish years, roughly, and since these weapons have been used in anger. And after 75 years, we've got people making decisions that have no realization of the impact of these decisions. None. So that's the problem that you have. And there's a concern that people started having about 10 years ago, and I'm really starting to get a little bit out of my lane, which is the mutually assured destruction instability paradox. And that idea, the mutually assured destruction instability paradox, is that you have, I'll destroy you, I'll destroy you. But instead, what you have is, because I have this big stick, I can do whatever I want, because you are worried about mutually assured destruction. And so, because you will not use your arsenal against me in the first place, knowing that I will destroy you anyway, I could be the biggest bully on the playground, and there's nothing you can do about it. And that's the second possibility. And this is what's playing out before our eyes. So this is why, if we do a no-fly zone, and I know, and I already walked it back, and I said I've already been educated, like, oh, why the no-fly zone's a good idea, and I get it now. We do a no-fly zone, it spills over. They go into Transnistria, it spills over. They try to create a corridor to Kaliningrad. They go either through the Baltics or they go through Poland and try to create a corridor to connect the Russia back over to Kaliningrad. Then right now you have a regional conflict. Right now it's country to country. It actually isn't, because we're already kind of regional because you have Belarus in here. And Belarus is the only way to get away with it, because Belarus would just throw everything they have if NATO were to hit them. And then it spirals and spirals. And then what's the next spiral? One side starts losing. Of what we could see, that would almost certainly be the Russian side. So now there's an advance that's pushing back the other way. And then the decision goes to use, well, I will use tactical nukes to stop this advance, to buy me some time to either negotiate or to pull more reinforcements up. And that could cut both ways. It could go the other way. And then, once that caps off, well, we've used little tactical nukes on military units. Then does that spiral, right? Then do you go, well, okay, we have to take out your capabilities. So we're going to do a limited strategic strike. And then the movie Threads really highlights the mutually assured destruction instability paradox, because the beginning story in the British movie Threads came out the year after the day after. Wow, that was weird the way that came out of my mouth. That movie shows, because that's what's happening. There is this land war that's going in Europe, and because you hear the news playing in the background. There's use of tactical. Then there is the strategic strike on military and communications, and it just spirals. So those are two possible scenarios. And then, there's a bunch of scenarios that are in between. So do I think gas prices will come back down? This is an ironic one for me. 80% of Americans surveyed today are like, we don't want any more Russian gas or oil, of which I agree with. But then are Americans ready to put literally, are they willing to put their money where their mouth is? Or does this just become a political tool to then go after the administration? If you look at the EIA, EIA.gov, EIA energy, EIA.gov, I think. I might be scrambling those letters. I'm getting tired. And this literally be the last question I'm going to answer. all of the data, import, export by country, how many number of barrels, all of that data is publicly available. In the case of Russia, it goes all the way back to 1995 by month. And you can look at it by barrels per day, barrels by month. All that information is available. Oil imports peaked, and they actually peaked across all countries, but not just Russia. They peaked under the Bush administration. George Bush famously said in 2006, we're addicted to oil. He passed the American Energy Independence Act in 2007. Part of that act is what gave us LED light bulbs. It's how companies like Tesla got born. It's what gave us the Chevy Bolt, the electric car infrastructure. All that's George Bush and Dick Cheney. Surprise. Like seriously, surprise. This was all the money and the funds. That's all part of that American Energy Independence Act from 2007. It laid the roots for drill, baby, drill. Fracking increased exponentially under the Obama administration. Surprise. The ability for U.S. oil companies to export crude oil, which was a huge mistake in hindsight now in the situation that we're in. I was against it then for strategic reasons, and I'm against it now. And that decision has bitten us in the ass. And that decision was made out of 100% pure greed of corporations. The end. We shouldn't have been exporting oil. We export a ton of oil. Why do we export it? Because the global market's willing to pay more for it than the US market. They wanted the bucks. And read. That happened under Obama. And the reality is we have thousands of capped off wells in the Bakken that they could turn on in weeks, right? It's all about that last mile. There are thousands of tapped wellheads that are just ready to go. The oil crash that happened, there were two of them. There was the one at the Great Recession, and there was one that happened like 2012-ish. And then we also, don't forget, we had this incident during the pandemic where oil went negative. Remember, like oil was worthless, right? We will pay you to take oil because there was nowhere to store it. Let's not forget that, right? It got down to like negative $30 a barrel. Technically, I get it. There's technicality asterisks to that. Those were devastating to the companies that do the drilling. Absolutely devastating to them, these three things. So a number of these companies went under. So you have the problem of you have these capped wellheads, but there isn't enough warm breathing bodies and companies with it to attach to the last mile. So do I think we should be important? No, I think we should stop it tomorrow. Am I ready to put my money where my mouth is? Absolutely. I get it, and I know what I'd be signing up for, and I'm ponying up for it. If we do it, does that mean we have a recession? Yeah, it actually probably does mean. I'm actually starting to get some concerns about we may be heading towards a recession because one of the biggest signs of pending recession in the U.S. economy is a big spike in oil prices, and we're seeing a big spike in oil prices. Back to, I want to close. Russian oil peaked. It started to go down. It actually dropped a lot during the Obama administration. It almost dropped to 1990s levels, late 1990 levels under the Obama administration. It started to go up a little bit, and then it started to go up a lot. You can go look at the numbers. It started to go up a lot, particularly in 2019 when Trump was in the White House. It approached record levels through the first half of 2016, because understand, like if you're a refiner, right? You're a company and you're refining oil. You don't like call up and go, "Hi, how you doing, Russia? Yeah, we'd like 300,000 barrels tomorrow." Great. It doesn't work that way. You buy oil futures, and those futures are delivered in the future, months in advance. So through the first half of 2021, those oil futures, that the United States was buying them, right? Because the oils are like, "Hey, Russia, how you doing? Yeah, we need 300,000 barrels in May of 2021. And, your buddy's in the White House and he's cool with it. So like, are we cool? Cool. We'll pay this price. Awesome. We saw this future market. See you in May." So because those future contracts are there, we see this. But now if you take a look, it has plummeted in the second half of the year, and it is back down to where it was, say, around 2018. as we've gone into the second half of the year. I know that Senator Manchin decided to become an oil expert. And I get it. It's like, dude, you're just a journalist. You're not an oil expert. You know, we threw out this number. We're importing 600,000 barrels a day. It's not true. It's not. It's like, and he's not, and it's not even like a technicality. He's off. He's off almost by half, which is, that's a big off. But I don't think we should be taking one friggin' drop of their oil. Western Europe has a bigger problem because of natural gas. Western Europe has a much bigger problem. Look, y'all, we're past midnight. This has been going for 3.5 hours. And here's the other thing. It's not just me. It's our mods and admins. Go ahead and spam those hearts one last time. Spam our hearts for those mods and admins. They actually hate when I run really over like this. I know about your private chat. I've never been in the room, but you have hinted. And I know that the mods and admins don't like it when I run this late. And also Dr. Mrs. Malcontent poked her head in the door a few minutes ago. So I know she's like, why is this running so late? So I'm going to sign off. Let me sign off with this. A couple of things. It is Splendid Saturday. We have a policy of no bad news. Now, we did bad news last week because, right, it had just happened. And I thought I've said, look, I know it's Splendid Saturday, but we said when there's big news going on, we can't, right? It just felt weird to bring feel-good news stories. I don't know what Splendid Saturday is going to be tomorrow. I really want to be able to do good news. If things are kind of where we're at, because right now, like the last 24 hours, yeah, there's stuff going on, but there hasn't been any big changes. So I'm hoping we can do Splendid Saturday tomorrow. We'll see what comes out of that. That's number one. The second thing is, there's some ways you can support independent journalism. You can support our organization and help us grow. 106,000 of you on TikTok. I can't believe this. I can't believe that 100,000 people give a crap about what I probably 90,000 people is 16,000 bot and fake accounts that are trying to get me taken off of TikTok. With that said, I can't believe that 100,000 people give a crap about what I have to say. It really is amazing to me. And mods and admins will tell you I have a profound sense of responsibility. It increases, in my mind, the importance right over first. We have to be right. First doesn't matter if you're wrong. If you have the story, you got the receipts, and you know you're right and first, we love that. Mods and admins will tell you we love those days. The research work that we did exposing the fraud in the testing world, you go to our website, read some of that stuff. Some of our work that we did helped get a company shut down, and we helped contributed to an FBI raid in another company. You don't get a lot of wins in journalists like that. Sometimes, a lot of times you write stories about injustices and terrible things happen in the world. People go, meh. And sometimes you write stories like that and you get phone calls from law enforcement officials going, do you have receipts? Well, yes, actually, we have receipts, and I actually can't believe that you're calling me. You're a hypocrite, Malcontent, because you said. We had a very big board discussion about what our view was in sharing that information. And we felt for the American taxpayers and for the potential harm that these companies were doing, literally potentially yeeting people because of them giving inaccurate tests, that it was the right thing to do. Anyway, right over first, because the truth matters. If you go to our link tree, if you're on our other channels, you already know about the Patreon. You'll see it on the run. If you're on TikTok, if you go on our link tree, there's a link to our Patreon. It can be as little as $2 a month. There's also a tip jar. Tip jar just goes to a PayPal. I don't know if our Venmo's up there or not. I don't think it is. I think it's just our PayPal is up there. Anyway, if you want to support us, I know a lot of you have supported us, because I see all the stuff popping up on the thing, and I know you supported us through the TikTok machine, and I really deeply appreciate that. You have no idea, because it helps us do more. We want to do more. We've wanted to expand. I will close with this. the team and I have said, because we've done right over first in Washington State for going on almost 4 years now, and we had a very small and passionate following here. That was a cross section of politics. Yes, we lean left. I think anybody figured that out now, that my personal politics go to the left. But we deal in truth. And I do believe that still, for most people on this planet, whether your politics are left or right or independent or mixed on this issue or mixed or that issue, that at one time I would say 80% of the United States, I think you can see it on my face. It truly makes me sad that I think that number now might be 60%. And it cuts on both sides. But I believe that 60% of people, regardless of politics, they just want the truth. They just want the facts. They want the receipts. Even if the truth hurts, even if the truth doesn't align to their system of beliefs and their values, they're at least willing to look at the truth and then stop and think. And sometimes you change minds and you celebrate those small victories. Sometimes you expose terrible fraud being committed. You celebrate those small victories. Sometimes you write an injustice, racist incident involving the relative of someone involved in law enforcement that looked like they were going to get away with it. They didn't. It's the truth. And the truth matters. And we have been committed. It's been in a core. And if you go and you watch on our other channels, the opening video, we have 3 missions. Right. We have 3 missions. And mission pillar is to hold those in power accountable. I'm going to close one little story on this. Last year, I can't say the organization on TikTok, people that watch the live who may still be on, and serious mods and admins, I'm closing on this. Last year, I'm doing a live, and I am confronted by a very right wing on camera and surrounded, very, very right wing group that we'll refer to as the Tough Lads. I think you can figure out who I'm referring. If I say their name on TikTok, the live goes down. You can't say their names, which is ironic to me because you don't have to dig far to find their content all over TikTok. But if I say it from a journalistic standpoint, I end up in the penalty box. There's this whole confrontation. I get asked, "Am I a communist?" Literally asked this, and I literally laugh. I'm like, "No." And they're like, "Well, what are you?" And I said to them, actually, there are things that you and I agree on. Like what? Well, I said, we'll start with the Second Amendment. I said, I certainly agree that a strong Second Amendment is really important. I own guns. I think it's a critical right. Oh, well, what else do you agree in? And then it turned into a conversation. And no, I'm not going to have a barbecue and drink beer. The other part that people don't know, modded admin teams know, there's a second conversation that happened off camera. And I will say it was a very civil conversation. Now, I'm not praising them as an organization. If this had happened in a dark alley somewhere, I think the outcome would be very different than broad daylight in a park with a bunch of people around. And there was one person in particular that, again, if you watch that video and you kind of watch how I position in camera, if you know kind of like then you're kind of like, oh, you kind of watching the one that's a little loose cannon. He's, kind of trying to keep a little distance, right? Have a little reaction time on that one. But we did walk away, both learning that there are some things. Because here's the thing. We all want a better life for our kids. We all want a fair and honest government. We all want our kids to go to good schools. We all want to live in a safe neighborhood. We all want economic opportunity. We all want to know that we're going to have a safe and stable retirement, that we're not going to be living on the streets or in the YMCA covered in our own waste. There is nobody listening to my voice right now that doesn't want this for them and their children. Don't let people break us up and split us and divide us over issues that we're told are critical and important and matter when they don't, because they're just used to divide us. And with that closing thought of peace and love on the start of Splendid Saturday, I'm going to say goodnight to you, TikTok, I think. There it is. All right. We're saying goodbye to the TikTok, and now I'm going to say goodbye to everybody over here. And be good to each other. You got some old school malcontent at the end of there. Bye.
Malcontent News is a team of journalists, activists, and researchers with 3 key missions. A commitment to show an unfiltered view of the before, during, and after of key events, live, as it happens. To defend the First Amendment using our rights of a free press. And to amplify the voices of underrepresented individuals including Black, Indigenous, persons of color, and the LGBTQIA+ community. Our team is committed to seeking equality for all and holding those in power accountable. The easiest way to support Malcontent News is to bookmark our website at malcontentnews.com, like and follow us on Facebook, subscribe to us on YouTube, and follow us on Twitter, TikTok, Twitch, Instagram, and in the Google News app. To provide financial support, you can become a patron, make a one-time donation through Venmo, or link your Twitch account to your Amazon Prime account and use your free subscription to subscribe to Malcontent News. Thank you for supporting independent journalism and for being a malcontent.
You fit the profile! You're the malcontent!
Nobody wants to hear the nonsensical ravings of a loudmouth malcontent.
He said malcontent Antifa, fuck you!
You are the biggest hypocrite on the face of the planet.
I say that you're a terrible reporter. That's what I say.